Welcome to another Free Music Empire discussion. This is not Attention Undivided. This is a special Roots Roundtable. I am your host, Dano, and today I explained the plot to Never Die Alone by Donald Goines to my 7-year-old son.
Fire.
And I did it in a way where I'm not going to get in trouble. So that is Dad of the Year stuff. I have assembled a roundtable of the finest Philadelphia minds. We are, because we're talking today about what I think is the second most Philadelphia thing I can think about. I can summon in my mind. The Roots.
Hmm.
The number one thing I think of when I think of Philadelphia is any sports event on television.
Mm-hmm.
When they're going to commercial or coming back from commercial, they always cut to someone making a steak and cheese.
Cheesesteak.
Yeah,
Sure.
cheese. They cut to the cheesesteak guy.
Yeah, it's
They
always
have
a
the
gym.
cheesesteak guy footage
Right.
loaded. They're
Yeah.
like, we are in Philly.
True. There's the onions.
The onions.
Yeah.
So we have the buttery tones of Rob from the Next Movement podcast. Fresh off another 5-star interview with Breeze Bruin, who is doing one of the press tours of all time. Just fire.
Definitely.
How
Yeah.
is he as good a rapper as he is at doing press? It doesn't even make sense.
Just a good dude all around. Such a gentleman, to use Zilla's word. Just a pleasure. Sit down and chat with him.
Incredible. Look it up, listen to it. It's great. I also really enjoyed your end of the year stuff.
Thank you.
You guys did a great job there.
Yeah, we had a great time with John and Josh with serious rap shit.
Yeah, shouts to John. Josh.
Yeah.
I'd like to give a big thanks to John Morrison for not being here tonight so that I could join you guys.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Eventually
With the snub.
But the other guest is someone, he's like a legend in 3 spaces, in 3 spheres, right?
Legend.
In this rap shit, he has the best rap song over Venus and Furs by Velvet Underground.
I do. No resolution.
In journalism, he has written the definitive Malik B. Rest in Peace
Thanks,
piece for Passion of the Weiss. And as a podcaster, he got me addicted to Mark Speck. I'm going to have to go to rehab for Mark Speck right now. I can't get enough.
That's cool.
So I'm glad to have you here, Mr. Zilla Rocca.
Thanks, pal. It's good. I'm very excited to be on your show now.
And we're here.
We're here.
It's great. And I did not assemble this because I know a ton about the Roots.
Okay.
I'm in Maine. I know the Roots, but we always found them confusing, to be frank.
Okay.
We found them very confusing. And it's been, and one of the things I was thinking about was, and the reason I wanted to do this was because the narratives have changed so much around all the members of the Roots, right?
Yes.
And Black Thought is now like either a god MC or who is that guy, depending on what age you are or whatever. And I remember when it wasn't like this. Do you guys remember when like Questlove kept getting asked in interviews when they were going to get a new like featured rapper in their group? That was like a real narrative for a while.
For sure.
People just didn't understand the collective.
I think it's such an anomaly in rap, right? I mean,
right.
It doesn't exist outside the Roots.
No, it really didn't. I mean, especially at that time when there's 93 is Do You Want More, right? Am I right with this?
90.
I believe you're right.
Or is that Organics?
I think
95. Do You Want More? So I wrote it down. 95.
Oh, good.
95?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Really?
So 93 is Organics.
Right.
That was what I was thinking of. Apologies to Dart Adams whenever I get a date wrong.
Dart will slit your throat. He'll come after you
definitely
in,
will.
in a dark room with a knife.
That's why whenever you get a date wrong, you got to apologize to him. It's like paying tithes. So I mean, Organics hits 93. And what I was thinking about was 93 is also when Balloon Mind State drops.
Definitely.
So Balloon Mind State is kind of the closest to what I think those guys were trying to lean towards what the Roots were able to do. Get really musical, get really ornate and orchestral with this stuff, and go against the kind of some of the simple beats that don't age well in the 90s.
Right.
There's some simple beats that I have trouble coming back to.
I think it's interesting because they after Malik passed, I went and listened to "Do You Want More" and "Illadelph" back to back for like a long walk, and like "Things Fall Apart" is my favorite Roots record because where I was in my life, and there's a lot like I just can't shake from that record, and it's great.
Right.
But when you listen to "Do You Want More," they're not trying to be an approximation yet of what the landscape is, what the industry wants them to be, who their heroes were. Like, "Do You Want More" doesn't sound like Native Tongues or De La or like Bob Powers, not there yet. It's still like them fresh off of being on South Street and then touring in Europe. And like Rob, like they're at the Painted Bride recording SA One Man. Like Painted Bride's a famous venue in Philly.
Right.
So they're putting that on the record. Like it's very much still, it's kind of like the first like Deadpool movie where they were like, we're just gonna put all this crazy shit together. And if it blows up in our faces, so what? Like this is what we want to do. And so they just did it. And I think everything after that for a long time then was like, okay, we have to give a nod to Native. We have to give a nod to Cutes. Like then it started the OK Player thing and the neo soul thing. But "Do You Want More" at the beginning, and like no one really it wasn't a big record. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was like it's kind of a secret to know the Roots up until fucking "You Got Me."
Right.
Like, and I was in the city the whole time, like not knowing anybody that really knew them. It was definitely like it was like like later on in life when you met people that knew Doom. Oh, you know Doom? People are like, oh, you know the Roots. Like pre "You Got Me." Like "You Got Me" was like radios everywhere.
Right.
But the first two, I mean, "Do You Want," like Organics, no one was into that. And then "Do You Want More" just had like a lot of the singles and B-sides and Bahamadia remix and Beat Miners remix and Roy Ayers. And then the second record, like They Do, came on. The video was kind of big, but it didn't really. And then around here, like Clones was like the biggest thing for them, really.
Oh wow, yeah.
Clones was Clones really hit.
Great
But
song.
but like outside of that, like and kind of like Concerto Desperado, kind of for sure. But that wasn't like the label's big signal. Like the label wanted them to blow off of what they do, and they were kind of shitting on Biggie and in that video. So it was it would be confusing if you lived in Maine or if you lived in like Connecticut. Like what are these guys about?
Yeah, no, it was. And, before we dig through the discography, I had an interesting Philadelphia rap question because one of the fun things about doing this for me was I got to look up all these listicles, right? Of like what are the best Philly rap acts of all time, right? Here's the list.
Right.
And the Roots are number one on every list, right?
Sure.
But number two changes.
Okay.
Number two is movable.
Yeah, easily.
So number two, like if you go to Hip Hop Golden Age, it's Jedi Mind Tricks. But if you go other places, it's Beanie. Because Beanie, that 3-album run
Amazing.
is like hard to duplicate.
Right.
So what do you two consider like that second space in the most important Philadelphia rap act thing?
That's tough. I think you can make a case for Jedi. I feel like in my, so to be clear, I didn't grow up in Philly. I'm not from Philly originally. I'm from Maryland. I moved to Philly in 2001. So I missed some of this. But coming back to it, I think you can make a case that Violent by Design is like hugely influential in the independent scene.
Definitely.
I think you could trace the impact of that for years down the line. So you can make a case for Jedi.
I think Jedi is big, but Jedi is big to like that niche, but they're huge in that niche of, you know, like the aggressive, like classic East Coast rap. And Stoop is like, I mean, I've seen Stoop at the World Cafe, like with his band Dutch. Like Stoop is, I think Stoop is like unbelievably underrated. I think I would say Beanie only because Beanie's influence, like people not from Philly started doing that style where they rapping like this with the imperative question mark. Like they all started doing that.
That's awesome.
Because he did that. You know what I mean? Like dudes from Virginia, dudes from New York, people all started catching that 98 Beanie flow, all major labels. And then him pushing Jay. Like back then when they would always like, oh, you know, like when Nas said like, compared to Beans, you whack. I was like, oh, he's just like talking shit in the middle of a battle. But as time has gone on, I'm like, yeah, he was better than Jay. Like for that run, yeah, he was better. And you know, over time, Jay has outlasted everybody. But for those 3 records, like every time they were on a song together, he was either toe to toe with him or better than him. And they did a lot of songs together.
And feared no one. He just feared no
Straight
one.
up.
And there was that, to me, that's the thing that, I mean, that's the thing about, like, you're right, Rob, you can clearly trace music today sounds like Violent by Design, right?
Totally.
Like, there's no question. But Beans touched the stars for a minute there. He was was on songs with Jay and Scarface, and they were like, "This is the man. I love this dude." you know, like
and that like I think naturally like brought a spotlight to the city where you get all the state prop guys, Free and Chris and Neef, and so for a minute he really like created a movement in the city.
He was, and he also did a thing where he was on the Roots record, and then he was, he's on like songs with Missy, like he was on every kind of industry. He's on like 112 singles. You know what I mean? Like he talked about how much he just studied Biggie. And when you listen to him through a Biggie lens on certain songs, you're like, oh yeah, you were catching that bounce. And he would like quote Biggie lines, but he had the Philly style. And I hated him at first. I hated Beanie because everyone in Philly switched on a dime to take his style and his flow.
Right.
And everyone in South Philly claimed all of a sudden that they were from Siegel Street, which is about 7 blocks north of my house. So everyone all of a sudden was like, oh, I'm from Siegel Street. And I was like, oh, God, I hate this dude. And every car was playing the Best of Beans mixtape where he's rapping on like Quiet Storm and Watch for the Hook by Cool Breeze. And I was like, oh, I hate this. I'm tired of this dude already. And then like I really didn't come on board with him until like the Becoming album, where I was like, okay, like this dude's amazing. And then I was kind of like a late bloomer. But I think with Jedi, they create like an infrastructure that still goes. Whereas like Beans was like a major label dude, and State Prop was kind of built to be his thing, but they were kind of like a boy band, how they were put together, from what they've all said separately. And then him and Freeway really couldn't adapt as well to when the trends would change.
Right.
And then even now, like he is a legacy artist in a way, but he doesn't, outside like Pusha T point, like he doesn't pop up on as many albums as I think he should. Whereas like Vinny Paz still comes out every year, still does his shit with Ill Bill, still rocking with like whoever like the new hot underground dudes are, like Rome Streets or something. Like he's gonna bring them in. He's still going with it. Whereas I think Beans is kind of like not really on the scene as much as he could be because everyone loves him. You know what I mean? Like,
did you hear him on Portis Huss on the Huss Kingpin?
I haven't peeped the Portis. I know Breeze on the record.
Right.
I haven't peeped that joint.
Yeah,
it's great because Huss comes in. He's very like Count Dracula, like dark romantic imagery, and then Vinny Paz just like, look at pro wrestler. It's great.
That's the energy he brings almost every time
That's
too.
his energy, man. And
Yeah.
he's great. He couldn't be a better named rapper, right? Like he's Vinny Pazienza. Yes, absolutely, 100%. But yeah, so I guess I was in the right to say this. I would always be in smoke-filled rooms with hip hop heads, and the Roots would come on, and everybody would start arguing about the Roots, but we were all people who were pro Roots, just pro different kinds of the Roots.
Okay.
And we just, none of us really knew what to make of all of this, right? Because there was a sense that, okay, you're a band, so you're just going to be a band, right? And that's your lead singer. Who are all these people, right? And there was this extended crew of people, and we were kind of dumb, I guess. Like we could have just thought about it like the Wu-Tang Clan,
right?
If we wanted to,
sure,
and it would have been graspable at that point. But it was interesting. But I didn't hear Organics until a year or two ago. Like,
yeah, it's cool. It's cool to check. It's not canon to me. Like I don't really look at it as it's kind of like Juvenile Hell with Mobb Deep. It's there.
Right.
You can go into it, as like a science experiment and kind of pick out the one or two songs like, oh, they were messing with this, and then later on they kind of developed that into the thing I liked.
Yeah.
But here's a lot of other stuff that's not really great. It was cool. I mean, like I've been to a lot of Root shows. I know, Rob, you've been to a bunch of Root shows, right?
Yeah.
Like I went like Electric Factory, like TLA, Riverfront shows. And they would have like different iterations, like you said about the band members, because it was always like Thought and Quest, and Kamal. Really, he's like kind of like the main person. But like I remember when they did the Phrenology, and it was like Ben Kenny, and like Martin Luther was playing a lot. I saw them live on South Street. And it was cool, like seeing them introduce like more rock elements. And I was like really into that era, and then they just kind of like moved off of that. You know what I mean? And then it was like the Tuba Gooding Jr. dude and Captain Kirk, and then I was like, okay, like who are these dudes? Like there was a lot of turnover sometimes, but they had like a good run with Rozelle and Scratch and Hub for like 2-3 records. So it was cool, like switching people out. But if you, again, like you're on the outside, like I keep thinking about it from your point of view, because I only know, the Philly perspective on the Roots. But the weird thing is, like, no one here liked them. Like people just didn't like them.
That's interesting. Yeah,
because it was just like because in Philly, like if you're an artist like me, you have to leave Philly to get props. Like no one in Philly is big because everyone in Philly is like, yo, that's our dude, that's our chick. We're gonna do whatever it takes to like push them. Right. Philly, everyone has their arm folded. They're like, I don't care. You rap, so what? Everyone raps. So as a performer and as an artist, you have to like win that crowd over. And when you do win them over, it's like it's very well earned. Yeah. But if you leave and blow up elsewhere and come back, then everyone in Philly is like, oh, that's my man. I told you they were gonna make it. So it's weird, but that's real. So they were gone for a while, and then once they came back, they weren't like Philly focused. They were like, musician focused. Right. So people in Philly are also like very territorial, and it just like their value systems never really lined up when they were on their way with people here. It was just always like a little bit off. But as time has gone on, it's like pretty undeniable. You know what I mean? Like everyone now is like, oh yeah, like Black Thought's my man. Like I love Black Thought. He's the best. But that's like a relatively new phenomenon of a group who's like 30 years deep. You know what I mean? That's like a last like 5-6 years idea. That wasn't like that in like 2006. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's strange. And there were some of these albums that I went back over that I had bought when they came out, and I hated him, and I was mad. And I'm listening to him now, and I'm like, this is pretty good. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Like what did you hate? What did you
Yeah.
hate?
Oh, Rising Down. Rising Down.
That's it's kind of a drab. It's kind of
I
drab.
did not like Rising Down, and it was uncomfortable for me. When I'm more interested in what Saigon's doing on your track, it's bad, right?
See, that was cool. Him and Styles P on that record. Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
I like that.
It was just weird, but I listen to it now. I'm like, it's pretty good. Like those records sound pretty good because musically, there's so much going on.
Right.
That, I mean, how bad is it? You've got Black Thought. You've got this real good orchestral stuff going on. The way Questlove drums is really kind of cool. Like there's a metronome thing to it, but he also does this weird like reverberating hi-hat sound to enter songs and exit songs sometimes, which I really enjoy. And I'm like just playing with that and making it less, I don't know, more organic sounding.
Sure.
Yeah, I felt the same way about Rising Down when it came out. But for me, it's just like at that point I was already sold on the Roots. So for me, it was just like, what are they doing now? Like that to me, Game Theory, Rising Down have a very different sound.
Yep.
They lost the like Fender Rhodes warm keyboard feel and went more synthy, and it's just a very different sound. So for me, it's just a curiosity, like where can these dudes take this? Like I'm really interested in that.
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, and for me, having heard it all at this point, there's no record as bad as Organics. To me, Organics is the one I don't want to hear anymore.
Yeah, that's not good.
It's uncomfortable. It's
Pass the Popcorn. You come back to Pass the Popcorn.
Oh,
it's like 40 minutes.
Dude, there's a 6-minute song about making grits. Like 6 minutes, like 47 seconds. There's like recipes, like competing recipes in the song.
It's like Native Tongues cosplay, that song. That whole album. It's very cosplay.
And it is because throughout the album, they're like, people say we sound like Native Tongues. And it feels like when a boxer is stymied and then acts like it's nothing. Like, I'm not Native. Dude, the song is 1 minute and 41 seconds. You're Native Tongues. Stop it. Stop it. So it's and I made the joke on the Color Culture Patreon thing of like that sometimes Black Thought seems like different characters, like the Love Jones, Lorenz Tate, different Lorenz Tate characters. And he's very much Love Jones, Lorenz Tate on Organics. He has that spoken word.
Yes. Thing. I am the thief in the night. What does he say? I am the lover in the night. What's that line he says, Dan?
Oh boy.
I am the something in the night. He keeps saying that.
Well, that's very much like a product though of like who they were spending time with.
Yes.
In the city. They were hanging out at the Painted Bride, like with poets like Ursula Rucker. And you can hear that in Thoughts Rhyme style back then.
And it's weird. I love Ursula Rucker and I love her contribution to the Roots. But she's a poet. Like there's rappers and poets are not the same. No. And like a lot of times they want to be the same and I'm not sure why. But it's uncomfortable because he's just not, it doesn't fit in that space. But that giant posse track on Organics.
Yeah. The longest posse cut in history. Is that what it's called? Is that the name of it?
And it's clearly based on Can I Kick It, right? Like it's clearly
again, it's
borrowed from that. It's like,
it's an approximation. Like and that's like when I think back to the Roots, and what frustrated me up until 4 or 5 years ago when Black Thought ripped that Funk Flex shit. And even before that, he did that Static Selected joint, Bird's Eye View, Raekwon and Joey Badass, where everyone's like, "Oh my god!"
Right.
And I was like, I feel like they put him in a prison for about 9 years, where they were like, "You can only rap in the character about societal ills."
Yes.
And I was like, "Yeah, but like this guy wrote like This guy wrote like Section and like
Yep.
Concerto, and he wrote Double Trouble, and he wrote 100% Dundee. Like,
Yeah.
you don't let him, and 75 bars. I'm like,
Right.
you don't let this dude go crazy on every album. Like,
No, I never understood that.
I don't know what the decision was, and he did it, but it was very like workmanlike. It was very much like bologna and cheese sandwich in a lunchbox, going to work at the old textile mill, and then come home. And then when he hit like Bird's Eye View and these features and then Flex, it was like, fuck that, I'm an entrepreneur, I do what I want. Like, I'm gonna sell shower rings, then I'm gonna fucking build a car. Like, it was, you could put him anywhere, like on any song with any artist, and it was working. Whereas before that, it was like, I'm only on these full lengths about injustice.
But still, I think he's still very selective, like still very choosy about who he does features for. When I always felt like he was treated like another instrument.
Yeah, that's fair.
As opposed to the like ultra talented MC. It wasn't for, when I went back and listened to the albums for this, it wasn't until maybe Phrenology where I felt like they started to figure out that Black Thought was a fucking amazing MC.
Hello? Like,
and they just let Thought go to work, like literally Thought
at work, yeah.
And it was, and so my half understood mind always respected Black Thought, because my favorite hip hop album of all time, number one, is Capital Punishment.
I'm glad you said that, because I was going to point out that he was the first person in the world, to be like, this dude is fire. I'm a street guy. I shouldn't like these dudes. He's going on my multi-platinum record. Mm-hmm. Next to songs with Busta, fucking RZA Beats, Wyclef. Here's Black Thought, who at that time probably sold total like 700,000 records, max. Yeah. And Pun was platinum. So I'm glad you brought that up. Like, that's all Pun.
And Pun, because Pun was a bit of like like an unwell individual in terms of how competitive he was. So he was like inviting his friends on tracks and then slaughtering, right? Like he just loved that stuff. Mm-hmm. So Capital Punishment is full of him just ripping and tearing apart whoever's on his track and like making a hook fun enough for the radio at the same time.
Right.
It's like a mad genius. But it always stuck with me that the only person who doesn't get eaten on that album is Black Thought. Black Thought goes toe to toe, stands up next to Pun. And so whenever people be like, man, I think Black Thought's whack, I'd be like, super lyrical. Sorry.
Right. And the beat's
not still the super lyrical guy.
Like, beat's not even good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The hook is fire and Thought is crazy. But I remember buying that album being like, oh shit, he knows who Black Thought is?
That's awesome.
Whoa.
That anybody knows who Black Thought is at that point.
Because I never saw his name.
Right. Yeah,
it's right. I never saw his name by itself on a credit.
Right.
It was always the Roots.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Pun was like a fucking explorer. Like, he went west on a ship and like landed and was like putting the Black Thought flag down first before anybody. And the album blew up.
And it was weird because I think in interviews, I think everybody kind of wanted the relationship to be like Fat Joe was his Diddy, you know?
Right.
And he was Biggie, but that was not it. And Joe was like, no, man, he taught me.
Yeah.
Like, I was the DITC. Like, I wanted real hip hop more than anything else.
Right.
And he was like, no, I got this one over here, and this will go to the radio, and I got this one's my street stuff.
Right.
He had it all. He had the marketing mind and the lyrical stuff. So, yeah.
That's a good call.
But yeah, so I always had that in my head, and I was like, sometimes Black Thought is brilliant, sometimes he's weird, and I don't, and he's just not there. And I guess I certainly wasn't aware of the tangled influences of Questlove versus the, his vision versus other people's visions. Mm-hmm. But I also like the Stream of Consciousness series. It's not my favorite thing, but it's part of the way through. I think the second one, I was like, oh shit,
Second one's
he's
crazy.
been doing this so long. He communicates through rapping. It's not hard.
No.
It's just how he speaks.
It's like breathing.
So, if he's in a shitty mood, guess what this album's about? It's a brilliantly executed shitty mood that'll probably put you in a shitty mood.
Yes.
And that's just how it is. When you're that good, when you're that Jedi,
Right.
you can just communicate your messed up state of mind, and it becomes an album. People are like, I think that album's kind of off track. You're like, I think that's where his life is.
I thought it was dope hearing the Streams of Conscious joints because he started. I like discovering and like parsing out where an artist is, like what their new interests are, what they're discovering, like what they're into. Like I said it when we talked about Ghostface recently, like about Mighty Healthy, when he says, like ringleader said all rap Derek Jeter, and I was like, oh shit, like he knows the Yankees, because at the time like Jeter was a young player. I was like, oh shit.
Right.
So hearing Thought on the Streams of Thought, hearing him like pull all history, he raps so effortlessly about all historical figures, while still talking about like current things and current slang and talk, while being of his time and era, and then like singing, and then still taking chances musically. Some of it hits, some of it doesn't, but it's like he still has like the fire in his belly, except now through Fallon, through like being on HBO The Deuce, which I love that show, and then the Funk Flex shit. He's just now like, oh, that's him. That's Black Thoughts. Like I know that dude. Whereas before it was like the thing that actually bothered me for years was how Questlove was the face of the band.
Yeah.
And how I was like, I don't know how many bands in music where the drummer is like the face, is basically the front man.
Fair.
And it's like when we just did our D'Angelo episode on Co-op Culture, I rewatched D'Angelo's Red Bull Music Academy lecture. It's 84 minutes. Questlove talks for 20 minutes. And I'm like, D'Angelo talks never.
Right.
And it's like, there's never been a time where I'm like, I just wish I had more access to Questlove's opinions. If I only could find out what he thought. But it's because he's an extrovert music nerd in an industry where most of the time the press couldn't get any rappers to talk to them. So they could always go to him and he could be like, yeah, well, actually, the B-side Japanese import remix at Tribe, Hot Sex is way better than the original. They're like, yeah, I know. Whereas the rapper's like, get the fuck out of my face, man. What do you, I don't want to talk to you. Like, he kind of like feasted on being the press's go-to for years and years. Whereas Thought was just like the art, like, I don't want to talk to you. Like, I want to just go smoke and
I was gonna say, I always got the impression that Thought was okay with that. That he did not mind that at all. And the other impression I have is that he's just not comfortable with it.
Until like recently. Like the last like 10 years.
Which I think my assumption has been it's like age and maturity have like somehow maybe being on television every night has somehow like made it more comfortable for him. But I've never sensed any tension, never read about any tension between them. It just seemed to work like personality wise.
Yeah, no, but you've got me thinking about the average interviewer, the average, like at that time, the music press, right, is going to be deeply uncomfortable with the kind of genius people that were out, right? Like, have you ever seen like an old Raekwon interview and how uncomfortable people are around him?
Yes.
Like, he is a weirdo street genius who creates new languages constantly. And so he might seem scary when he's not being scary, but he also might use words that aren't words and you might not know what he's saying. You have to like adapt. You have to,
and he expects you to be like, of course. He's like, yeah, of course you know what I'm saying. Like, You know, like 17. It took me 17 satellites to get here. You're like, what?
Yeah.
Huh?
Right.
He's
And
like, you know what I mean?
it was
Called a quasar. You know what I mean? You're
You
like,
know what I mean?
oh.
And you're like, yeah.
on the call out culture episode, you remember when Alaska said that, and sorry to quote your podcast specifically like this, but the Cannibal Ox episode, when Alaska's like, you remember all those song titles? That's just how those dudes talked.
Yeah, about the Canox, yeah.
Iron Galaxy, and like these were
Right.
just things they would just say because and I didn't realize this kind of stuff until I didn't realize how different parts of the country were until I went in the army.
Mm.
And then I was just like, ooh, I don't think I can trust what people from New York say. They're too clever. There's too much, you know, I don't know. I was meeting people from New York who was like, I wrote Black Rob, you know, a song 15 on Life Story. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm taking a flyer on this.
You know what's interesting? You said that, Dan, is that years ago I interviewed Helta Skelta when they put out their third album, Dirt, the incredible rap team.
Mm-hmm.
And I had Sean P and Rock on the phone. And Rock said that. He was like, New York's a very slick talking city. So how we talk, what we say on records, how we name things, our slang, depending on our borough, depending on our block, like it's very different. And so like Rock Marcy's rise is like a person that is so New York because it's all slick talk.
Right.
Like everything he does. And with the Roots and with Philly is very fragmented in that, like Rob for a long time was in West Philly.
Right.
I'm in South Philly. Nobody from South Philly would want to go to West Philly.
And vice versa.
And vice versa. And it's 15 to 20 minutes max in a car. Not far. Right? And then if you lived in North Philly, you never in your life want to come to South Philly. And if you live in Southwest Philly, you never in your life would have any reason to go to like Northeast Philly. So everyone in Philly has like, they're landlocked in these neighborhoods. So Philly doesn't have even like the culture, the melting pot of New York. Like Philly will be like, okay, this is like the Puerto Rican neighborhood, not like surrounded by the Jewish neighborhood, the Russian neighborhood, the Cambodian neighborhood, the Italians. Then we all kind of, it's like, no, this is Puerto Rican. Cool. These are Polish on all the way. Like there's no intermingling. So Philly doesn't have that.
Section of Philly called Spanish Land. I mean, that's
Spanish, and we also have the neighborhood. Right. You know what I mean? Like there's that. Everything is like sectioned off. Like the neighborhood is here to here. So Philly doesn't have like the flair because Philly is very much like go to work, take care of people. Your neighborhood's the shit. You stay where you are, and then that's it. And whereas New York is like, I catch the train, I go here, and I cross like 17 different countries, cultures on that path. You know, like you're just so subjected. It's like Bronson, like when I watch Fuck That's Delicious and I see like when he's doing the New York episodes and he'll do a Philly episode, like he's so at peace with every culture because he's been exposed to every culture being in Queens. Versus like if you took like PD Crack, like he's not gonna feel great potentially going to like Gary, Indiana, and then like Japan, and then like Seattle. You know what I mean? He's just gonna be like, he's more set in his square. And so I think like Black Thought, the rapper, in a roundabout way to say this, is like he's never been a slick talking dude. He's very been like workmanlike of like the sameness. Like I have rapped more than anyone on earth. Mm-hmm. We've done 17,000 shows. We've taped 950 episodes a year at a show. We've put out however many fucking albums they put out. And this is what you're going to get with me. You know, like it's not going to be like an adventure or a journey when I talk. It's like, I'm just going to hit you like boom, 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 boom. And then I'm going to go home and I'm out. That's a very like Philly vibe.
And it was, I mean, where's that reality show where we get like the grittiest battle rappers from Philly and we dump them in Paris and like make it in Paris, you know?
Like they're gonna rob somebody. Like they're not gonna like lounge and like link up with everybody and have a party. That's not gonna happen.
It's weird though, because that's how the Roots like made it, by getting out of Philly and spending time in London. I remember I worked at a retail shop in South Philly for a long time, and Kamal came in one day right after they came back from touring at like Prague or someplace. And I asked him like, what's that like? Because that seems kind of weird to me to play hip hop in Prague. And it was not a thing to him, because I think at that point they had spent so much time other places. So it's interesting that like I agree with everything you just said, Steve, about like the section neighborhoods. And I think we could probably have a history lesson about how gang wars in Philly like made that possible. But to come from this very like sectioned off city and make it internationally, the tour internationally the way that I did, I think makes them an interesting case.
100%. You know what I mean?
Do you think
and then goddamn.
I was gonna ask you if you thought like that the Philly association nationally was Philly Soul. Philly Soul was a huge movement, right?
Right.
And the face of the Roots, Questlove, is this soul documentarian who's weaving that into the textures of the music.
Who literally like grew up on the road, you know, because of who his family was.
Right, his father.
So like he gives them kind of what they expect and then something else. Maybe that's what helped it break a little bit. Remember, it helped the neo soul take off.
Yeah, I think he his, you know, seeing his pops in the industry, and then, you know, him being like a focused musician from a young age really helped. And I think, like, I remember reading his book or somewhere else about, you know, their decision early on when they signed with Geffen was like to be overseas, not spend any money, and just do tons of shows and kind of build it up organically overseas, and then come back. And, you know, the way like the rap press was and the climate of rap, like they were just like bastard swordsmen, like wandering by themselves, you know, like, and that's when they decided after a while, like there needs to be a collective, there needs to be like a reference point and context. So it can't just be us over here and then everyone else is talking about these 15 acts and we're nothing like anybody. So there was like, you know, the whole MCA, Common, you know, Black Star, Erykah Badu, Jill Scott, like all of that, D'Angelo later. But I think like when I've traveled and done a lot of shows, one of these dudes I used to do shows with told me, he was like, yo, when you leave Philly, people are excited to find out you're from Philly, like when you do shows and you tour. And I was like, really? And then I discovered that when I would be in LA or in Vegas or in New Mexico or something, people would be like, oh, where are you guys from? Philly. And they'd be like, they would get like very happy. It's like, because they love Beanie and Freeway, they love the Roots, they love Will Smith, they love Eve, like, you know, fucking Rocky, and, you know, Creed. Like there's now, I get, if I went out there now, I'd probably be like Joe. Like right now, Prem Rock is in Guadalupe, right?
Right.
Prem Rock said he's in the cab, and he's talking to the cab driver about basketball. And the dude's like, oh, you like the NBA? Where are you from in the States? He's like, oh, I'm from outside Philly. Dude's like, oh, we love Embiid down here. He's been dominating. So like if I was on the road right now, I'd be talking to people about Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons or some shit. So, you know, or it was Iverson. So it's like we got the shit people like. But when you're here, it's like everyone's like, oh, you ain't special. Shut up. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care. It's like, what? Because I know 10 people better than you. Like, what? You're not.
Right.
There's a weird cultural cachet outside of my cousin teaches in Compton, and or did teach in Compton until this year, and she, like, whenever she would go overseas, they'd be like, Compton, oh my God, you know, they were so excited because of, you know, the cultural imprint of Compton. It's strange, but it is there. So I think of Organics as the Roots uncomfortable middle school yearbook picture. Just point. Like, put that away, you don't need it, you know, kind of move along.
Right.
If I've slandered it, let me know. But I think that's
nah.
I think most people don't know Organics exists.
Yeah, and that's probably
like Juvenile Hell with Mobb Deep. No one's fucking with Juvenile Hell. No one's like, oh, let me pause Quiet Storm to play Juvenile Hell.
No, I wanted to like Juvenile Hell so much, and I just didn't. But Do You Want More messed me up. Because I didn't hear that until later. But somebody played Lazy Afternoon, and I was like, lead me directly to that. What the fuck is going on?
That was like Biggie's favorite song.
It's amazing.
Love that shit.
And there's no album that is that tempo, that's that mood of just like mellow my man. Like it's just so
No Good Pretender, Distortion of
so
Static.
chill. And there is something to, like, I was watching Malik B stuff because I really love the album he has with Mr. Green, Unpredictable.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And he was talking about how, like, he used to meet up with Tariq, go swimming, and they used to freestyle for 45 minutes every day. And like back and forth.
That's awesome.
And you can hear that shit on Do You Want More? You know what I mean? They're completing each other's thoughts and sentences. Like, they have a chemistry that's just, you can't buy, you know?
That was an album for me. Like that was like a Subway album. I used to play it on tape. As a cassette album for me on the train, because the train is like, it's funny because I was talking to somebody about like why I like Life After Death more than Ready to Die, because when I bought Life After Death, I just started driving, and so my experience with Life After Death is in a car, playing that record, and it's designed for big speakers in cars because it's like very bombastic.
Yep.
Whereas like Ready to Die to me is like a headphone album. It's like being on a bus in the train, with the exception of like Big Papa and like One More Chance remix. But like Do You Want More was a train album for me because nothing about it is like the city of Philly underground. It's like bright, it's loose, it's jazzy, it's smoky, it's hazy. It's got spoken wordy parts to it.
Yep.
It's got raw rhyming parts to it. It's got the lesson freestyle parts to it, beatboxing.
Yep.
It's just like a whole different place. And that record is like I said before, like when Malik died and I went back and was playing it, I felt like you, where I was like, this sounds like, it's almost like the first Wu-Tang album. It's like we're just taking the shit we're doing every day and just going to the studio and doing it. And then when we leave, we're going to do it again tomorrow, and then we're just going to bring it back in here because we've been doing this for years.
Yeah. I kind of imagine them just waking up the day after recording Do You Want More and doing another 5-hour set on South Street. Like it was just another day.
Yeah, it sounds like freedom. You know, it sounds like, how fun it is to have a blank page in front of you and just create a world. Like they just really sound like that.
Yeah.
It's really cool, but and I wasn't ready for, because some of these albums I haven't come back to in a long time. I wasn't ready for what I thought was the best, because I always thought Things Fall Apart was the height of the Roots kind of thing, right? You Got Me is, I think it's like the best like hip hop love song kind of thing. It brings just a bunch of things I like together, and it's excellent. They won a Grammy for that. But I think Illadelph is one of the best rap albums ever. I re-listened to Illadelph and I was just blown away by it. I just really love that album.
The difference between, I think you touched on this earlier, Zilla, the like difference between Do You Want More and Illadelph, and listening to it again for me feels vast. Like
so different.
They went from this jazzy street performing band to something completely like talking about the streets in a way that they didn't even get close to on Do You Want More. It's such an interesting transformation. I also love the record. I'm with Steve, I think. Excuse me, Zilla.
Hi. Sorry.
I'm probably going to slip a few times. I'm with you, Zilla. Things Fall Apart is probably my favorite, but there are some fucking fantastic moments on Illadelph.
I mean, and Illadelph might be the one where they start. One of the things I noticed was that they're so good at weaving other people into their world that some people sound better on Roots albums than they do on their albums.
Oh. Push Up Your Lighter. I fucking love that.
Oh my God, I
Bahamadia.
was about to say it.
Yeah.
Bahamadia on Push
Yeah.
Up Your Lace is unbelievable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's amazing on that joint.
Yeah, and just they can weave in, it doesn't matter whether it's Common or Raphael Sadiq or Mars. Everybody just kind of fits beautifully in this thing, and Cassandra Wilson and
Jazzy Fat Nasties.
yeah, you just start seeing people kind of jump in, and everybody sounds like they're having so much fun. And I think that's why people were wondering. People were like, "Why don't you just trade Black Thought for somebody else?" Because they were like, "This sound is so fun. You could just throw Method Man in here, and it'd be great."
Yeah.
That doesn't really work for me though. The further they get into their career, like the more I started hearing Greg Porn and Truck North on stuff, the more I was like, what? Why?
I like Greg Porn. I like this.
I
hook
kind
a
of got
lot.
into Greg Porn.
I like this hook. His mixtape was bad though. I was excited for him. I heard his mixtape. I was like, nah, bro.
I never really got into it, and I was always like, where's Thought? Like, why do I have to listen to this to wait and get to Thought?
Honestly, that was one of my Rising Down concerns when I first bought Rising Down. Was like, what are we doing with all this Truck North, Greg Porn? Like, what can't we clear space for what Thought is doing right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So,
that being said, I think their earlier stuff, like their first maybe 4 albums, like Dice Raw, like I remember being blown away the first time I heard Dice Raw, and you're right. There's this seamless quality to it. These dudes just fit right in.
it's a long album. It's not a
Illadelph
short
is
album.
like, Rob, you appreciate this. I bought Illadelph at fucking Blockbuster on 11th and Snyder.
I forgot Blockbuster even sold music.
There was like 1 year where they sold music and all the kids were stealing the fucking rap CDs, but I bought Illadelph at Blockbuster.
Nice.
And it's very serious because like everything about the artwork is like dark, and the
Yep.
liner notes are written in like red or green. That's like even the artwork with like the tracking, everything's like workmanlike. It's like a lot of credits, a lot of words.
Yep.
Everything is like in there. Again, there's no pizzazz on their shit, and it's a very like a Philly frame of mind of like, we're here to do our job and then move on. I think Illadelph, like when I played it again like during the summer, I felt like it was kind of more depressing than I remembered.
It's darker for sure.
It's definitely darker, and it's like it's in that it came out in 96, and clearly like I love 1996.
Yep.
But it's like that album in that marketplace is like really strange in retrospect. You know what I mean? Whereas like Thought and Malik are rapping fucking greater than any duo that time.
Yep.
But they're competing with like Mobb Deep, the Fugees,
right.
Busta, The Coming. Like they're dead. They're dead on arrival. Like you really can't be out there totally on a fit. Like Foxy Brown is that year. It Was Written as that year. Like it's like dropping like it would be like dropping like a Steven Soderbergh movie when there's like Michael Bay, Brett Ratner. You know what I mean? It's like it's gonna find an audience, but goddamn, like this is MCU City, and you're dropping like a heady indie movie about like a divorce or some shit. You know, it's like it's not gonna hit as hard, even though the content's crazy. Like,
but I think it's the foundation of what they will build, right? Like it is what becomes things fall apart, and I think the mental transition, because we were talking about Do You Want More sounds like they're having fun, sounds like freedom, but this Illadelph sounds like, no, we can do this in your industry.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to step into your playing field with our sound.
Right.
And we're going to do it better. And that was them kind of saying, we're not going to be this off to the side niche thing. We're going to be here.
Yeah.
And I think what they do was purposeful in that sense, right? It was poking the people who were like, oh, those are those guys to the side. You were poking at those guys.
They were throwing jabs at those dudes. It wasn't just a poke. I mean, I remember clearly the first time I saw that video, and I was like, oh shit, they are really going hard at these guys.
It was funny. I remember seeing them perform that song on the fucking Jenny McCarthy show on MTV.
Yeah.
She had like a sketch show, and I was like, watching. I'm like, is that the Roots on Jenny McCarthy show? Because they performed like what they do, and I was like, it was very uncomfortable. I was like, no one in the crowd knows what the hell's going on. Like, it's like they don't know who these dudes are. Like, why is there a drummer and a bass player? Like, what? And it was just we just again we kind of talked about it on our upcoming pod about we talk about MC Hammer, but we talk about Biggie as well, where at that time Biggie was still alive when they made that, and they were in the we ain't with that glossy shit. Like they were in that economy. So there's the Biggie bad boy economy of like, we're the best, we run the radio, your sister likes us, your girl likes us, all your friends like us, the DJs love us, we run the world. And everyone else like, no, fuck you, we hate this, you're not the essence. And there was a whole separate economy of like, nah man, we're even more grimy, we hate that, we're against it, we're gonna make fun of it. And so they were in that lane with like J. Rue the Damager going at Biggie,
Right.
OGC going at Biggie. And they were all doing that because it actually gave them success.
Right.
The same way we talk about an episode about Hammer. Like if you went at Hammer, you got a #1 record out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So Hammer sells 15 million, but Third Base gets their biggest hit doing Pop Goes the Weasel, making fun of Hammer.
Right.
So it like benefited everyone. So even when the Roots did what they do, and the video, like they're making fun of One More Chance shit, and they're making fun of the Moet and Champagne. You know, I don't think it was like a shot just at Biggie by himself, but they were on, the video is like them, also Common's there, De La's in the video. It's like, we're with the good guys.
Well, when you name your band the Roots, like the Roots of hip hop, you kind of are obligated
to
take that stance.
I know. It was silly.
Biggie was better than all of them. And Biggie reacting to that in real time was super interesting because it was I started to realize that like when you become the king of whatever, New York, the industry, whatever, you then have to figure out what your strategy is to what you're talking about.
Right.
Like, and you remember like the whole story about, Biggie doing that J. Rue response to Premier in the studio and being like, I don't know why you even run with them. And he was like just looking at Primo the whole time. And talking about J. Rue.
For all of that shit. That was for Nas, Ray, Ghost, J. Rue, the Roots, Tupac. It's like, yo, I'm better than all of you. I make more money than all of you. I got hits everywhere up and down the block, like all over the industry. I'm gonna take one song, you're all getting dealt with, and then I move on and make more money, more problems, which you can't do. You can't do it. So bye.
But he's still like, Biggie was still very much interested in not just being the richest, but the best, right? Yeah. He wanted both. And so he heard everything. And it was that's what makes the life after death interesting, is because you're hearing him deal with everything. And it's something Jay had to come up with a strategy for. 50 really never did come up with a strategy for. And it's whenever you get to the top, you have to figure out how you're going to deal with that stuff. Because if you ignore it, it can get out of hand.
Right.
The game can make 100 million mixtapes at you.
The game.
And just keep coming.
200 bars.
Love
700
it.
Bars.
Love it.
1,000 bars.
Yep. No, you got to squash it. But it's so. Yeah, no, it's Philadelphia's. I think it's wonderful. I think Episodes is amazing. That is a Dice Raw situation. He kills it. Does anybody have a favorite Ursula Rucker close?
I think it's the
It's tough.
Illadelph joint. I think it's Illadelph.
Yeah.
I think that's my
Yep.
favorite one.
The Adventures of Wonderland.
When they're in jail and shit. Yeah, that one's crazy.
I think for me, it's got to be the first one. It's got to be the
Offering.
Unlocking.
Yeah.
The Unlocking. Yeah.
The Unlocking just was like, I mean, one of the things I love about Ursula, who I've gotten to know a little bit.
She's cool, man.
Since we had her on the pod, and
bro, I was on the beach. I was on the beach listening to you talk with her about Frank Ocean, and I was like, God damn, I'm playing Frank Ocean too. This is over. I love her.
Yeah, she's amazing.
That's awesome.
But she's so like brutally honest in her poetry, and just doesn't pull any punches. And I remember hearing the Unlocking for the first time and being just blown away by how blunt and just out there with it she was. And so that I got a sentimental thing for that one.
Oh yeah, I mean, you were like, it was one of those like, I didn't even know you could do this.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait, you're gonna close with poetry, but it's gross poetry. This is awesome.
Right.
You know?
And the story behind that is great too. Like, she wasn't even supposed to be on the album. I love that. Like, they called her in last minute. She just wrote this in like 2 days, and the rest is history.
We gotta talk about the best Roots song of all time.
Let's do it.
Step Into the Realm. It's the best Roots song ever.
So is that Things fall apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Step into the realm, you're bound to get caught. And from this worldly life, you'll soon depart. The fucking beat fades out. Oh my God, that's the best shit they ever made in their lives.
That's right, yeah.
I walk across the world, it's accepted. The beats are perfected, the ghetto perfected. Yo, that shit is crazy, man.
And Malik was really on it with that one.
Yeah. No,
yo,
it's a great album.
Hollywood samples a joke just like Martin. Oh my God, he fucking kills that shit. I'm the type to try to walk the mic with a sword or hold your mic with a cord. Oh my God, he fucking destroys that shit. And thought is like, pay to the top, I got a cypher slaughter on my mic, snapping you senseless, defenseless. Brothers never moving me inches, defensive. P put down in the trenches, aficionado, awesome hip hop. What was it? Awesome hip hop drug problem. Fuck stardom and chickens up in Gotham. Yo, that shit is. Because there was a Gotham nightclub in Philly. So when he said that, I was like, oh shit, fuck chickens up in Gotham. I was like, yo, that, and the beat keeps fading out like every 8 bars. Oh my God, that song is amazing. That's the best Roots song.
There was I mean, it's just, to me, what was it had kind of a weird tone to it. It was a little bouncier and goofier than Illadelph. I kind of thought, as stark as Illadelph was, it was still very like musical, but it was like dark, brooding musical.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kind of beautiful in that sense.
I think Things Fall Apart is when they figured out they could like make art, that they didn't have to just make, hip hop records, that they could make something like extremely artistic. They started playing around with production, I think, in a way that they hadn't prior to that. Although I do remember, when they used their first sample on this record, Schoolie D's Saturday Nights.
Oh yeah, take heat, y'all. Get a little P.
But I remember hearing that and learning that and feeling a little like, I don't think I like that. Like, they just violated their whole thing.
Without a doubt.
But the song is dope.
Yeah, Dynamite, or no, Without a Doubt.
Without a doubt, yeah.
It was just fucking crazy, bro. P's and Q's. Table of Contents 1 and 2, like Malik Part 2 destroys that shit. It's the R to the O, the O to the TOS. That shit is, oh my God.
So good.
That record is unreal.
And Double Trouble with Mos Def is
wow,
one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's
Double Trouble.
Just passing it back and forth like effortlessly. I love it.
Smack the track up and leave dents in it. The vocalist busting his blunt instrument. Oh, I know shit. You play that.
Yeah, no, it becomes undeniable, right? That becomes an undeniable thing. But that album is definitely a gift and a curse, because after that album, a bunch of things happen, right? Like they become the names for neo soul and what neo soul means, right? And they also become like the first hip hop group that we think of when we think of Philly, right? Like,
Sure.
and not all that stuff is what they wanted, you know. And they started running from the neo soul stuff pretty much after this.
Yeah.
And Malik B is out after this, right?
Yes.
He comes back later, but this is when he leaves and goes, I don't like this stuff.
I think.
What you gonna say, Rob?
I think the Malik stuff is complicated. I mean, as thought outlines on phrenology. But yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I also think there was a lot, from my perspective, there was a lot of pressure on them. Not just because they're like so closely associated with Philly and they've got a wider, they have to make commercial hits now. Like,
right.
You Got Me was all over the radio. And now there's this pressure, I think, to make something, which you could argue they lived up to. They made The Seed, which just crossed over in so many different ways.
Right.
But for me, phrenology overall is like a departure that I was not ready for. Like,
100, I'm with you. Yes.
I just
at the time I didn't understand it, and I didn't get it.
Yeah, I had a hard time accepting it.
Like, well, half that album is like Thought's solo album that they
Right.
shelved and then just put it on that album. So like
Yeah.
Quills is this,
Nelly Furtado pops. It's just strange.
yeah, like you know, like Thought at Work is a solo song.
Oh yeah,
Rock You is a solo song. Quills, Kareem Riggins.
Yeah.
Those are all Thought solo joints for his album Masterpiece Theater, and then that fucking MCA label folded. So they were just like, well, we have all these songs that Thought did. Just roll them into this joint and make, 6-7 new joints, and we have a new Roots album.
Right.
Like Rolling with Heat, like Pussy Galore, like Break You Off. I really like Break You Off. I think it's a really dope song. But The Seed is like, they used to play that like on Eagles games on the radio coming back from like timeouts. Like that's a huge song. You hear like rock radio was playing that.
Exactly. Yeah.
It was huge, and like I love like Cody Chestnut. That record is still one of my favorite R&B albums ever. The Headphone Masterpiece. Like I love Cody. I thought I was excited about it. I was like energized because I got tired of that neo soul shit after a while. I was like when like Common was like wearing crochet pants and like a Coke commercial talking that shit. I was like, nah, this is corny, bro. And he had like a fucking like sweater vest or something. I was like, nah. And everything was like the 2-step. Like Macy Gray popping in and like
it was rough.
It was corny after a while. Yeah, it was just
it was a lot. There was a lot going on. I think it's in Questlove's book too, where he talks about voodoo, his like obsession with voodoo, and how, according to him, like it came close to ending the Roots. He just like like shelved everything so he could focus on voodoo. So you have to wonder like how much them using Thought's solo stuff for phrenology is a band-aid to get them through, that period.
That's great. Makes a lot of sense.
About that. That really does. Yeah. I've been having an interesting debate with my friends about the voodoo. Because again, we just talked about D'Angelo on our show, and how to me Dilla and D'Angelo is neo soul. It's not Questlove, it's not Erykah Badu, it's not Jill Scott. It's D'Angelo and Dilla, because they were the ones being like, our drums are gonna hit like this a little bit off, and we're gonna have the bass lines. Like they could think of that aesthetic and do it, and then everyone else was like in service to the aesthetic that they were forming. And then when they were done with it, Dilla after that made like Rough Draft, which is like ignorant car music, make them envy, what I mean? Like wow, champion sound. Like he just completely abandoned it and just kept going. And I think it was tricky because the rest of them, like we're saying, had so much unbridled success using neo soul as like a marketing thing, a Vibe magazine cover, a creative, a collective. They all couldn't just be like, nah, yeah, we're just gonna move on. It's like, bro, I just sold 1.2 million records being neo soul. like Flowetry got a deal because of neo soul. They wouldn't have been signed.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it was giving people jobs. And so I think like I like Phrenology because I just thought Neo Soul was like soft after a while. I was like, nah, this is corny.
Hmm.
And then Phrenology was like Rock You, the first song. That shit is it's a
That's
solo joint. It's DJ
awesome
Scratch.
song. Yeah, it's
that's
crazy
it's,
song.
yeah.
I mean, at some point it was like music videos with India Ari riding a bicycle and looking up at the sun, and you were just like, oh my God.
It's the snake
so
eating its
weird.
tail. Yeah. What are you gonna say, Rob?
Phrenology also, though, like kind of like we were saying earlier, is a reflection of the changing makeup of the band. You know, they bring in these different guitarists that naturally like bring a different sound, and so it has a more rock focused perspective.
What was after that? Was it The Tipping Point?
Yeah.
That was when they had like Don't Say Nothing. That
Right.
album's weird.
It is weird.
It's got good joints.
That album for me is like a reaction, a reflex. Like there's a much more live sound. It's like they went back.
Yeah, because it has like Web. It's got what's that other song on there? I watched him perform that shit live when it went on South Street on like a moving truck.
I was gonna add, wasn't Web like an old song? Was Web like something
is that
they used to pull out?
Web is that the joint where he does like the Big Daddy Kane and Cool G rap flow?
No, that's Boom.
Boom.
Yeah.
That's Boom. Web is just the drum and the bass, and he's just rhyming.
Yeah.
But it's got somebody's got to do it with Devin the Dude, Jean Grey.
Yeah, that's
and
a weird song.
Yeah.
Weird.
There's weird stuff going on.
But then it's got like Everybody's a Star. That's incredible.
Yeah.
It's just
I
feel like
by the way, I think
see again.
I think The Seed is probably the best single that the Roots ever had.
Agreed.
It's one of those. You can play it anywhere.
When they did Tipping Point, that's like post Neptune's 50 Cent, like Aftermath, like cold keyboard live Lil Jon, like that's that lane. That's the climate that album is in. So like
I wrote down some of the contemporaries just for reference. So 2004, The Tipping Point is released. You got The College Dropout,
yes,
Encore, Pretty Tony, Purple Haze, Mad Villainy, and Urban Legend.
Yeah. And again, it's all like post 50.
Right.
So it's like, and like the Aftermath sound is still like a big thing. And then Lil Jon, like that's Usher that year.
The South is coming up.
Yeah, the South's like slowly moving in. It's just a weird. Is Don't Say Nothing on that record, or is that the next one?
Yeah. No,
that's like a straight up, like they brought back Scott Storch. It's like an Aftermath, like recycle bin joint. You know what I mean? It's like,
but it's also these really simple instrumentation like arrangements.
Yeah.
Very simple guitar chords, really stripped down drum sounds. It really made me think of Do You Want More when I listened to it recently.
The weird part about that album is I feel like it's almost the album they wanted it to be. Like that first track is beautiful. It's one of their best openers, I think, ever. And I was like, man, if you could have done this, Stay Cool, and you said, Rob, just revamp the kind of Do You Want More with what you learned, right? And that would be the album. But there are concessions on that, and I think there are concessions that they don't make on Game Theory, right?
I agree.
So I think they kind of wanted to do it different.
Yeah,
I fucking love Game Theory.
Game Theory sounds amazing, especially given how bad that era of rap music is.
Yeah, it's the worst.
To release Game Theory amidst that,
it's so good.
That's Stones. That's good stuff.
Well, that was like Jay being like, that was when Jay was president of Def Jam.
Oh.
And he said to them, he was like, "Yo, just make an album you want to make. Like, I don't want to be the guy responsible for like making the Roots sell out or sound like garbage. Like, just do what you want." You know what I mean? So like, you have like the Game Theory song, which is amazing. Malik B's back. They really did what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
So many good people in here. Shout out to John.
I love that guy from
John.
what's the name? Rob, did you ever catch that band with Dice he was in? I always say the name wrong. Nouveau Riche.
No.
It was Dice, John, fucking Nikki Jean. I think Kari was in that group. Kari Mateen. They would play a lot at like the Fire. They would open for the Roots. They were like the first like G League Roots outfit. Where the Roots, it was like, oh, I like those little songs that we're just gonna take those, thanks. Which is what they end up doing later on for like Rising Down and all that shit, where they just kept those dudes in a factory in Fishtown and like would just walk in and take all the music. Nouveau Riche was like the first sacrificial lamb, and that's how they started getting like Greg Porn and like the John shit, the Baby Joint. That's all Nouveau Riche. Dice is like heavily involved.
Nouveau Riche. Yeah.
They were fucking cool. They had some shit. They were like trying to make it outside of like the Roots stratosphere, and it didn't work. But
Do you feel like the Roots have done a decent job of like spotlighting Philly artists?
Oof. It's a mixed bag to me. It's a very mixed bag because there's people that I feel like they pull out of nowhere. You're like, oh, dope. Like Sugar Tongue Slim, STS. Like Castro used to be in groups with him.
Yeah.
But then there's other people that seemingly would be incredible with them, and that are like easy layups, and they don't co-sign them or rock with them. And like clearly I know a lot of Philly artists, and people have had like really strange interactions or brushes with them over the years. So it's been like there's been a lot of like give and take in terms of how rappers look at them in this city over time. But I think now like it's just undeniable. You know what I mean? Like all that shit's over.
Sure.
It's just undeniable. Like, hey, they're the best we got for sure. Thought's the best we've ever had. Like I'm not gonna carry that shit.
They did seem to make an effort to. Sorry, Dan.
No, go ahead. You go.
From my perspective, they did seem to make an effort at times to like bring people into the spot. I remember seeing them Area 1 tour with Moby. They were one of the opening acts. I was in
Nelly Furtado, Outkast, Moby.
Yeah, Incubus was on that
Incubus, fucking Jurassic 5.
I saw them in Maryland. I saw them at Meriwether Post.
I saw them in Camden. Yeah.
But they brought Jaguar Wright out, and she sang like 2 songs while the rest of the band just like took a break. Wow. I was like, who the hell is this? I have no idea who this person is. And I feel like they did that occasionally, but I've also heard stories like what you were saying, that like they were just kind of weird about communicating and interacting with other acts.
I mean, like they put her on MTV Unplugged and she stole the show. And then her label dropped the ball, not dropping her for like her album came out like a year after that, and everyone was like blown away when watching her do Song Cry.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't even talk about Unplugged and the impact that had on them.
The Roots Come Alive album.
I had that one too.
Yeah. Dope. So I mean, but we also didn't talk about my favorite Roots affiliate who pops up on Tipping Point. Guns Are Drawn, Mr. Son Little.
Oh, Son Little.
I'm a huge Son Little fan.
Wow.
And honestly, just because of his album from last year, Aloha, which is one of my favorite albums of the year.
Wow.
Son Little's awesome. And I love his stuff with the Roots. He's on Sleep on Undone as well.
Undone. I do not like that album. That's Castro's favorite. I hate that album.
Really? Wow.
I do
not like that.
I think I am between the two. I've got my own take on it, but it's connected to certainly my favorites, but no, I love Son Little. I love when they work with Son Little. You're right. It's weird who they work with and who they work well with.
Mm-hmm.
And how they bring people in or don't bring people in. It doesn't seem to be like in an organized fashion that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? So I'm looking at the track listing for Rising Down, and it's it's a very weird record because like 75 bars on there, crazy. Get Busy, the one single with like Dice and Petey.
Yep.
It's pretty cool. Like it's
Yeah.
cool. Petey, I think they screwed up because Jay was pushing Petey to be in the band
Right.
on Game Theory, and then Petey was like torn with them because Malik was gone, and it was just thought, and like Petey's like the perfect balance to Black Dog. Black Dog like rhymes, everything is on the two, like he's nailing it, and Petey is like the most charismatic, energetic. Like women love this dude, street dudes love Petey. They changed his name to Petey. You know what I mean? They could be Petey Crack. And he, I'm not Hove. I just know what I know. Like this motherfucker is like the coolest dude. And then he just came and went like really quickly. He's on like 3 Root songs and he's done. And he was not like the easiest to deal with from what I remember around that time.
Everybody says that. Yes.
Yeah. So like it wasn't for lack. I thought it was a genius idea to put him with the Roots because they were both on Def Jam. But I'm like looking at the rest of Rising Down. I'm like, I remember some of these songs looking at the titles, but like Singing Man, Unwritten, Lost Desire, The Show. I don't remember any of these shits. Like I remember the Wale joint, Rising Up with Wale and Chrisette Michele, because then Wale put on his mixtape. So I remember that joint. That's pretty.
I think of this album as an album that didn't know whether it wanted to be pretty or grimy.
Good point.
That it was, at one point you've got like Criminal with Saigon.
Yep.
And then you've got, you've got all the, Lost Desire and like, so there's the Wale stuff. Part of the Roots is like Questlove wanting to be like, this is my 4-act, 10-minute song about the nature of life.
Yeah.
And part of it is like, let's get really gritty. Like you guys think of us as like artsy. We're not artsy. Like
right.
The last song was 10 minutes and it was 4 acts. And like, come on, bro. Like
that tension, I think, is one of the things that have made some of their albums just not work for me. Like I listened to Rising Down and then I read about Rising Down. I was like, I don't get that at all from listening to Rising Down. Like it was supposed to be this like dark portrait of the political landscape in the United States, and I was like, I don't hear that when I listen to this record.
It's just very generic. It doesn't. It's a Bush. It's the end of the second Bush era, but it doesn't sound like there's a lot of great records made during the Bush era about the Bush era. Like see the Def Jux catalog, like see fucking Sage Francis, A Healthy Distrust. Like there's records that are like, yo, we hate this dude and what is happening right now. Whereas the Roots album is like, hey, it's bad. I'm like, what is bad? Like, is it the Patriot Act? Is it the oil prices? Is it the fake war? Is it Fox News? Like, what is bad? Yeah. And they kind of use that blanket, like, conscious shit on the later records, which I was like snooze fest. You know what I mean?
Well, this is my problem with Undone too. Is like you have this like very narrow, supposedly very narrow like narrative. This is supposed to be a story.
Right.
I'm not hearing it.
And the story is wild generic, bro. It could be like any like BET after school special from 1993.
It's also been done like however many times before in hip hop.
Like Prince Paul did that record before, bro. Like
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's the Nate LeBlanc rule of like, if you're gonna have a concept record, have it be tight. The tight concept. Do not give me a loose concept.
Yeah, like remember the Streets one, A Grand Don't Come for Free?
Yeah.
It's about like someone stole his like laptop or his money, or he's like, no, that was Kanye. Kanye talking about his cousin stealing his laptop. That would have been an ill concept album. Kanye talking about his cousin who stole his laptop.
Yep.
That's dope.
We might still get it.
Yeah, but when the Streets of the Grand Don't Come for Free, it's like one night and then his money's gone and drugs and like he's meeting chicks, he's at a club, then he's back home and he's like freaking out. It's a very simple story versus like this. He's a street kid. It's his last sale as a drug dealer, but he's gonna get out, and his grandma wants him to be somebody. And I'm like, all right, bro. Like the movie Fresh did a better job of that. Fucking in '96, man.
I thought about Prince Among Thieves too, mostly because it was like I understood what was happening on that in the story because they told me. It was very clear. There was like dialogue, and that did
Breeze
not
was
exist.
saying, "Man, I just need to sell this crack to get this money for the woo."
Exactly. Yeah. On Undone, one of the things I thought was like, why do I need more? Like I said earlier, why do I need more Greg Porn? It didn't occur to me till later that like, oh, he's playing a character. I just couldn't tell because it's not, the substance isn't there.
It's a misstep. It's a misstep.
But before Undone, we get my favorite Roots album,
How I Got Over.
How I Got Over.
Oh,
I love that record, bro.
I can't believe I skipped over that. I love it too.
If I put on a Roots album, it is How I Got Over. That is the one I reach for immediately.
So
Radio Days is the shit.
And as how good this album is, Robert Christgau called it the most substantial album the Roots have done in the best of 2010s. And he's mean. He's smart. He's mean. Christgau's mean. So that's pretty cool.
I remember when they took the gig on with Fallon, and I didn't get it. I was like, yo, that's the end. That's the end of the Roots. I don't know what they're doing, but this is the end of Roots. It's particularly like records. Like,
oh yeah,
I can forget about another Roots album.
Yep.
And then they were the first musical guests, right? And they played How I Got Over, and I watched that and I was like, oh, I get it now. This is like
incredible.
Yeah, the best marketing ploy of all time. Like they're gonna use this to just amplify the brand.
You know what I'm thinking about too as we're saying these things, and I remember I used to like listen to when that record came out. This is summer 2010. I would leave work and then I would drive down to FDR Park, Rob, and then me and my friend, one of my best friends, he was like an MMA fighter. We would like work out together every day from like Monday through Friday at this big park right next to all the stadiums. And I would like wait for him to get there, and I'd be playing How I Got Over, like to get me in the mood, like the Fire, the title track, and go work out with this MMA dude. But it's interesting, like because they've been major label artists for 30 years, and we talk about this a lot on our show because we are indie artists. Clearly, it's a very different set of expectations, budgets, all that. So when you look back, to backtrack for a second to
I already know what you're gonna say.
Rising Down. Okay, Pete is ready. So Rising Down is like, well, Saigon was a really big deal for a minute. We got to get him. And Styles P and Mos, they mean a lot to people in 2007 or 8, whenever this album came out.
Right.
And then, Wale has, what's his name's manager? He's the next guy. We got to get Wale. And Chrisette Michelle's on the label. She's on Def Jam before she sang for Trump. We got to get, like, these are all industry moves to put those particular people on the record. Okay. When you get to How I Got Over in 2010, this is like when everyone was into indie rock. That was the era when everyone's like, fucking rap. I like Of Montreal and DOC.
Animal Collective.
Guilty as Charged.
Grizzly Bear, right? Everybody was into that shit.
Absolutely.
And so who's on this record? Joanna Newsom. Patty Crash. You see
Jim James.
Monsters of Folk.
Right, exactly.
Jim James, I mean, it works. It
works.
It does.
Like, these delicious hooks. They're just so good.
Right on. Yeah,
it's so fun. Dear God is so beautiful. And Walk Alone is so dope.
Walk Alone.
Oh my God.
And did you ever hear the Bus Driver and Mike Eagle version of Dear God?
No.
Off of it was this Bus Driver mixtape called Computer Cooties. And they did a version called Dear God, like DEER, Dear God. But it's them, Mike and Bus singing Dear God and like doing their own shit. Look that shit up. That shit is wild.
That's just wild. That is something to hear, man. I gotta find that. And by the way, this is all a ploy to get you to send me the real Bulletproof wallets, like the leaked version.
I got that.
I know you have. But yeah, I love that album. And
real quick, you know who's on this album?
What?
Blue was on 2 joints. Blue was the cream of the crop back then. Everyone loved Blue. Yeah, we all love Blue. Well, you got two joints of Blue. You see what I'm saying? That's like a very industry move. He was on Warner Brothers at the time. Like
Blue almost took over the world. He was almost there.
Yeah.
He was almost the guy.
I'll tell you.
so
I'll tell you a
clever.
blue story.
I think you could still do it, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Tell the story.
super
No?
talented. Super talented.
I love that record. I love the record he did with. When you were talking about concept albums, I was thinking about A Long Hot Los Angeles Summer Night.
I
I
gotta
love
peep
that
that
record.
joint. I'll tell you guys when we stop recording. I'll tell you something. I'll tell you real quick.
Off the record.
But it's a fucking great record, man.
It's big hooks, crazy arrangements. It's the way I thought of How I Got Over is it is a big, fun rap album about poverty, which is what rap is kind of supposed to be. Like, and
true.
in some old sense of like, we're talking about all these issues and poverty, and he's a cab driver in the video, and it's gritty, but but it's a block party. It's on some level, right? We're like celebrating, and it's so beautiful to me, and that's why to me, Undone is the pretty lullaby version of How I Got Over it, and which I'm not offended by. I like pretty lullaby stuff. That's cool, but like that was like we need a Grammy. Right? So we're gonna take
like Oscar bait.
Yeah, exactly.
We're gonna take this and we're gonna make it so pretty they can't do anything about it.
But it's like again, like there's Big Crits on the record because he was like the hot industry guy that year. You know what I mean? It's like
Big Crit's the man.
Yeah, this is 10 years ago. Wow, but I don't remember one song of. I remember Lighthouse. That song's hot with Dice. That song because and our homie Rick played. He wrote that song. He was homies with Dewey Saunders. Shouts to Dewey. Rick wrote that joint. Yeah, like they. Yeah, I don't remember anything from this album, dude. Except Lighthouse.
I remember they just straight up used the Sufjan Stevens song.
Yes,
and
Castro loves that. Shouts to Castro.
It just says Sufjan Stevens. They didn't even try to make it anything else. That's all I remember.
Needlessly pretty, and just kind of, it's like one of those Oscar bait movies that is like in black and white for no reason, and people are doing like strong looks away and stuff, and like, the people. I used to argue with people be like, Daniel Day-Lewis is the best actor in the world. I'm like, the only reason you think that is because he's always telling you that with the way he holds himself. There's other great actors. Jeff Bridges is a great actor. He just
Philip Seymour Hoffman before he checked out. I'd take him over. What's his name?
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yes, I would take Philip Seymour over that dude.
Yeah,
I do love the cover photo for Undone. It's a
great cover.
Pretty.
Fantastic photograph.
Yeah,
absolutely.
By that point in the industry, like 2011, this is like everything's haywire. Like blogs are running everything. No one's buying shit. Like what's popping in 2011?
2011, I got you, Zilla. 2011, Watch the Throne.
Oh, love that album.
And then you got some up and comers. Drake's Take Care.
Ooh.
Cold World came out in 2011.
Okay.
Goblin.
Oh man.
Tyler Goblin and Danny Brown's Triple X.
Wow. Yeah, none of this fit this album.
No, not at all.
A bastard child like this.
By the way, Watch the Throne. Me and K Diggy, who we do the State of the Game, we have this thing about Watch the Throne that it's like the last time two guys that were that rich gambled on a collaboration album.
So good.
That whenever you get two big artists doing a collaboration album, they're just kind of being like, my brand meets your brand. Handshake.
Yep.
That's what's coming
like,
with.
What if we do dubstep?
Is that what's coming with this Ice Cube, Snoop Dogg, Too Short super group?
They're never coming out, man.
No?
All these super groups, they never had. That's why Watch the Throne's amazing and it exists.
Exactly.
All these rumored like Scarface and Beanie never came out. Dre and Ice Cube never came. Everyone's always supposed to do shit, and nothing happens. And Watch the Throne actually happened.
De La and Pete Rock.
Yeah, that was like 10 years, bro. Don't
So there might be two songs on Undone that I really like enough that I would like keep in a mix.
Okay.
I might go Cool On and Sleep, and I think I'm good after.
I don't remember that shit at all.
Get your cool on.
That song's hot. Yes, that song's fire. That song is fire. But see, that sounds like an outtake from How I Got Over.
Yeah,
It sounds
fair,
like a
fair.
block party. It sounds like
Yeah.
some block party shit,
Yup.
which I love a lot. It does not fit that record. That record
No.
to me, that's like going to the museum or some shit. You know what I mean? Like it's very cold and pretty, and you can't touch anything. You know what I mean? And like, you can't really
100%.
talk loud, and then you're out of there. Like it doesn't. It's not something I want to do a lot. It's like, oh, like one time you went to the museum.
I love that. I love that analogy. It's perfect.
100%. And around the time of How I Got Over, I loved that album so much, and I realized that other people kind of didn't.
Hmm.
And I was like, I think we've all kind of gotten spoiled on the Roots a little bit.
Yeah.
That like they've been around for so long, and they are their own genre, and we're all just kind of like, you know.
Right.
And it's, people didn't really know. Like my joke is that nobody knows whether the harmonica soloist is doing good or not. They're just
Like Bruce Willis.
You're killing it, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, no.
Like that's how the Roots were after a while. They were like, that's a good Roots album? Probably. Like it wasn't.
Yeah.
And to end on, there's something poetic about ending on, and then you shoot your cousin.
That album sucks.
Because
it sucks.
That album is such kind of a
disaster.
It's nothing. Really, it's not anything. It's just
it's antimatter.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I think I remember the first time I heard it thinking like this is super artistic to the point where I don't get it. And I still don't get it. It's like the banana on the wall. Like, is this art or is this something else? I don't know.
Such a good comparison. I kind of like Black Rock. Like I kind of like that.
That's the only joint on that album
because that's a straight up sample. Like that's the song Black Rock, which is amazing. Like
right.
Other than that, I mean, it's like okay. So I'm looking at the Wikipedia, right? Black Thought described the album as a satirical look at violence in hip hop and American society overall. I'm thinking, who did an album like that and it was amazing? When Master Ace did like Sitting on Chrome.
Right.
He was like,
yeah,
check it out. Oh, you like this type of shit? I'm going to make this type of shit and it's going to be hits.
Right.
And I'm making fun of it the whole time. Or even Beasties. Oh, we got to fight for your right. Haha, like these guys are assholes. We hate these kind of guys. We'll make a song like this. It's fucking 18 times platinum. And the Roots were like, oh, it's like a satire on violence. And everyone's like, what?
Zilla, do you think they were like, do you think there were dudes in cypher hats being like, the problem with the Roots is they've lost their satirical. They're not satirical enough. I need the Roots to give me cutting edge humor.
That's what I'm saying. They're not funny. They're pretty humorless.
Not funny.
They're not funny. And that's like something that even to this day, like Thought is amazing. He's never made me like go like like never. He's never made me like
no.
Except on TV. Like
on TV, he's that dude.
Right.
But when they make everything, it's always like really good, very technically proficient and cool and smart and melodic sometimes, and there's a point to it. But like the thing I'm thinking about a lot with them too is like, with the exception of 3 or 4 songs, like they're not hit makers.
Exactly. This is what I thought you were going to say earlier.
Okay.
We're talking about a band that a hip hop band that has lasted for like 3 decades.
Right.
Made 14 albums or something. And you can count on one hand the number of like mega hits they've had.
Yes. Like The Seed. What's one the body joint?
You Got Me.
You Got Me.
What else?
Maybe The Fire, because that was on a Cadillac commercial. The Fire.
Right.
Maybe Proceed, because that was kind of a song. And like what they do, I mean, if that's like your 5th biggest hit.
Yeah, but how does that happen? How does that happen?
It's one of the things that really puts me off a little bit about the Questlove influence is that he's supposed to be like the pop idea guy, but he never really gets you there, right?
No.
His idea of pop isn't ever really pop, so it never pops. So there's a story I loved where you remember Talib Kweli opened his blacksmith label and started treating everyone terribly, kind of.
Right.
Uh,
And Team
and
Gray.
he tried to sign Exhibit. And he's like,
Yes.
you should sign to Blacksmith. And
With Strong
Exhibit's
Arm
like,
Steady.
yeah, and Exhibit, well, because Exhibit was rolling with Strong Arm Steady.
Yep.
He was trying to keep them with him. And he's like, me sign to Blacksmith? I outsell you, bro.
Right.
Why would I sign to you? Like,
Yes.
what? Yeah.
Exhibit was on Pimp My Ride.
Right.
He's not like looking at like, oh, you had the blast once. Like
Right.
you had one song once, bro. Like I already did the Foundation. I did Paparazzi. What you see is what you get now. I'm on Dre and Snoop all day.
Mhm.
I think when you sit back and look at their career, like we said, the longevity is amazing. The
Yep.
sheer number of records, but Outkast came in the door after them and just blew them the fuck away. Kanye came in 10 years later, destroyed them.
Yep.
It's like they were never even close to people that were rookies, and just Drake, like you said, Rob, like Drake came in that 1 year. Now,
Yeah.
granted, Drake has like 70 people making hits from him at all times, but like
Right.
he still is always the number one dude every single year, without a question. Jay annihilated them. Like it's just I think because like we said, Thought was never like I'm a splashy front man, and Quest is like, to me, the neo soul shit, like I said, is like D'Angelo and Dilla, and Quest was like doing an approximation of the Dilla and D'Angelo aesthetic. That's not his lane. You know what I mean? Like he said it, like he had like BD programmed by these guys. Dilla's just a guy in Detroit with records in his house.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and
Right.
D'Angelo was like 24, coming off of Brown Sugar, making Voodoo. So it's like I think they're like really, they're like Al Horford, like 12 points, 7 rebounds for 10 years.
They're
You make
just-
some all-star teams, you go to the playoffs a lot, but you
They-
never look at that Al Horford. Like we just had him on the Sixers last year. You never looked at Al Horford like, holy shit, Al Horford's playing, we're getting tickets.
Right.
But you look back and you're like, yo, Al Horford made fucking 7 all-star teams. Whatever,
except
you mean?
except one of the things I've thought about many times as I've been thinking about this night is their live sets.
Well, yeah, that's a different
I
world.
would go
You're right.
way out of my way to watch them play live because
You're right. I'll give you
like
that.
on record. They're
Yes.
I in some ways feel like they have tried for the last 20 some years to capture their live performance on record, and it's never worked. The live performance is just next level shit. It's one of the best shows I've ever seen, and I imagine it will always be.
But you know what it
Got
is
a
too?
personal
But in the
story
live
about
set,
this.
oh, go ahead, man.
This makes me angry. I've never seen the Roots live, but I almost did. So, you remember Rock the Bells, the festival, the Rock the Bells festival?
Yeah.
The 3 stages, right? And it always got really ugly in the middle because you've got really good stuff at different phases. So, on stage 2 is Ghost and Ray.
Oh,
On stage 1 is the Roots.
oof.
And I'm like, and my wife is like, I'm going to the Roots, dude. And I'm like, look, Wu-Tang got me here. Like they were here for me when no one else was.
Mm-hmm.
If they're there, I have to be there. That's just what it is. She's like, you've seen Ghost and Ray before. And I'm like, that's true, but I have to see them when they're here. Like,
sure.
you don't
I'm
understand.
obligated.
This is what it is.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Roots were doing Ghost and Ray's set at their performance on their stage.
Yeah. They're doing Criminology and Ice Cream.
Right. And it was just as live, probably, maybe even more so.
But again, it's like the approximation piece.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I've seen them live do other people's songs and flip styles and do jazz versions, and it's like, I don't know, bro. Like Wu-Tang has way more hits than them. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And there were a bunch of dudes with records in Staten Island. It's just,
yeah.
It's just strange to sit back and we said like their 5 biggest songs are 2 short shot amazing hits over 14 albums, and then everything else is like for us, like for Roots fans, which is cool. Like it's just fan service. But
so here's a different perspective, I would say, on because when you were talking about neo soul being D'Angelo and Dilla, and I think that's good sonically. When I think of neo soul and the voice of neo soul, I think of Badu.
Okay.
And Badu is the voice for me because, and partially because she's one of the only neo soul people who never had to struggle for an identity.
She was her before that shit started.
Straight
She
up,
was
and she
her
still is
afterwards.
now, right?
Right.
She's not worried about it. So
Mhm.
the Roots, the whole career that we've logged is them finding their identity again, constantly finding their identity again. And how many different fan bases have they brought in and rejected while doing that?
Yeah.
Where Badu is just Badu all the time, and I can count on that shit. Like,
That's a good call.
and Badu probably hasn't had a ton of hits, but she's kept that
She's-
cult satisfied.
Yeah, she's like penetrated culture in a different way. You know what I mean? Where it's like she's almost to me like Lou Reed, where she has big spots early on, and because of her persona, and she's kind of like aloof and has a lot of mystique, but she's like timeless. You know what I mean? Like she's what she represents is a coolness that you said. It's like a very effortless thing to her. And even when she zigs and zags and it does different things, it doesn't take away from her being like, yeah, but that's Erykah Badu. You know what I mean? Like Lou Reed can do like the weirdo guitar record, but it's like, yeah, but that's fucking Lou Reed. Like he's the coolest dude. Like it doesn't really matter. I think the Roots were never cool. And I
That
think
is a great point.
they were never cool. And I think when they've tried to be cool, it blew up in their face. And then when they leaned into being more uncool, it kind of lost people even more. And so it's strange. You know what I mean? Like that's why I said like Al Horford, like watching Al Horford since he was in Florida up until last year on the Sixers, there was nothing I enjoyed about watching him play the game of basketball. But I knew like this dude is a valuable winning player. Like if you put him on your team, you will not be worse having him around. Like he can do so many things for you, but when you look up, you're like, he just had 11 points and 5 rebounds, but he mattered. But goddamn, like Joel gets 30 and 12 with one leg. You know, it's just so Al Horford is not cool. Like never was cool ever. Like even in the All-Star games, he would get picked last when he was making All-Star teams on Boston. That showed you how the players looked at him. Like Al Horford, there's fucking 24 guys here. You are the 24th pick. Like what? Like without a question. You know what I mean? So I think like the Roots were never cool, but I think they knew that shit like very early on. Like we are not cool. So how do we survive this? Well, and they've survived better than anybody.
They were never cool, but they were great at times, but they weren't great for a bunch of records in a row. Every great record is followed by a head scratch after that Illadelph things fall apart run, right? Like from then on, it's left, right, middle, down. It's all over the place.
But like Rob said, the shows are great.
Right.
Yeah.
All the shows are great.
And I really think some of the artistic turns, like I said before, are really informed by the changing band members. Like Ben Kinney joins the band and now they're rocking out.
Right.
Ben Kinney leaves the band. Owen Biddle's in the band. Now they're more focused on production. Leonard Hubbard leaves the band. It's not as jazzy. He's not playing the stand-up bass anymore. It's a different feel.
Rozelle leaves.
Right.
You know, and you don't have like the beatboxing parts. Like you don't have 100% Dundee scratches. You know what I mean? Like you just start pulling those things out.
Yeah.
It's weird. But the people that they keep plugging in keep them as like a functioning recording band.
Right.
I just don't know like if there's like a lot of sizzle. You know what I mean? Like who's sizzling? I don't know.
Yeah. Dan, you compared them to Wu-Tang earlier, and I found myself recoiling at that because like who are the characters? The Wu-Tang is full of these characters.
When you have Method Man and Dirty, you're printing money.
Right.
Not printing money with Deck, Master Killer, You God, you know.
Right.
Yeah, or like lots of rappers can do story raps, right?
Mhm.
But Ghostface can do a story rap and get pissed in the middle of the story rap
Right.
as a character that he's not. He's like, I
And
wrote
then
this
start
like a
singing.
crime novel, but you're
Right.
yelling at me. You
Right.
okay? Like it was just there was nothing like it, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's very
Yeah.
cool.
yeah, and Dice Raw just isn't that character. Like
Yeah.
Up
And
North is not that character. Yeah.
Kamal can really play the keys, but I don't know him. Like I don't ever get to see him. I don't hear from him.
Right,
Who are the
right.
characters in this band? You know.
Yeah. No, and there's like the constant search for identity thing uh really kind of messed them up. And I think other artists who just kind of were their identity,
Mhm.
like got a chance to do whatever they wanted for forever. Like I was just thinking of Cypress Hill for some reason
I
that
was
like
thinking about them too.
Cypress Hill, they whatever, they went platinum and they kept like 500,000 of those fans forever,
That's it.
you know? And they just kind of kept
Yeah.
doing the Cypress Hill Gold certificate and killing live shows, and they're a cult, and that's cool.
Because they were cool. They were cool to
Yes.
skaters, potheads. You know, like their first two albums were cool with hip hop heads. Like they were fucking cool. And
So
I don't know, the Roots were just not cool.
who are the Roots cult followers? Who are the Roots fans?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like there's like 5 different groups that don't agree. You're right. There's like there's the neo soul pocket, where the Roots will always be Illadelph, things fall apart.
Right.
And there's the early aughts kids who are like phrenology is their jam.
Right.
And there's got to be somebody out there repping the How I Got Over Undone phase.
The Fallon phase. Yeah, the beginning
Yeah,
of Fallon.
the
Yeah.
Fallon
And
phase.
Pitchfork.
And there's some critical people who probably are into the game theory section. But there's no coherent grouping. It's not like Juggalos. They're
Yeah.
splintered.
Right. Yeah. No.
Buffaloes.
Because a bunch their uniqueness as a live band. I got the sense early on that people were listening to the Roots just because they played instruments. I remember I went to high school with Father John Misty, Josh Tillman, and I remember I was really into hip hop and he wasn't. He hated it.
Mhm.
I was like, "Yo, you got to listen to the Roots. He was a drummer. I was like, they play their own instruments. You got to hear it."
Yeah.
And for him, the Roots were like an exception at that time because they were playing instruments. So I have a sense they have maybe a faction that follows them for that reason too.
You know, it's funny though when you said that. Like when I was in high school, again, we were like pre iPod high school, where it was like you just locked in on one style and that's who you were. That was your identity. Like I was friends with dudes that only like fucking Creed and Nirvana and what's her name? Blink 182 and all that shit and Good Charlotte.
Yep.
And like the rap they thought was fucking cool, Outkast.
Yeah, dude.
And I didn't have to prod them. When they heard Rosa Parks, when they heard Miss Jackson, they were like, "Oh shit." When they heard Eminem, they were like, "Oh shit." When they heard Hard Knock Life, they were like, "Oh shit." When they heard Hypnotized, they were like, "Oh shit." I wasn't like, but like guys, they like play the roads and like guys, they're from here.
Because that's exactly what I sounded like.
Yeah, it's like begging for their like legitimacy of some shit they don't care about. Whereas like when people I knew heard like Bombs Over Baghdad, they were like, "Oh my god, I gotta buy this. I don't even like rap. Holy shit!" It was like that's what I was saying. Like Outkast just flew by these dudes.
Well,
and
I think,
accomplished everything.
I think part of that is like if it was like a draft thing and you're like you're gonna be in like a hip hop super group and you've got to have somebody who's like the ear behind the music and the vision behind the stuff. Who are you taking, Big Boy or Questlove? I'm like, give me Big Boy, every day,
all the time.
every day.
I'll always say Big Boy.
He's underrated. His
Yeah.
his solo stuff is incredible.
Agreed.
Yeah. No, he's
And he's
cool.
fucking cool. He's fucking
cool as-
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
polar bear's
Daddy
cool.
Fat Sack's cooler than a polar bear's toenails, bro.
That's right.
Like straight up. I mean,
Yeah.
he put it this way: Big Boy can make How I Got Over. He can make that record. The Roots could never make Speaker Box.
No, speaker
Well,
box. Right.
I think part of it though is what you were saying earlier is all about the like this workmanship mentality from the Roots, as opposed to I don't know how you phrased it, but like this ability that Outkast was coming from another planet. They like frame themselves as aliens who like have this whole different perspective. Like that draws people in a way that just consistently doing the same thing over and over again until you perfect it just doesn't.
Yeah, no, there's a regional aspect to this of like Outkast, because I think I heard Andre say this in an interview where he's like, there's a reason East Coast rap is like screwface rap. It's because it's cold. People are pissed. And in the South, there's nice weather all year. People are driving weird vintage cars. Like they're having a ball because it's warm out there.
Right.
And there's just a different attitude. And so they brought like that Southern playlistic attitude. Whereas like you're talking about the slick New York stuff, that's not coming from the Roots, but you're also not getting like a cool new Midwest flavor. You're not getting like, it's just kind of a different deal.
I remember seeing the Chappelle Block Party movie in the theater, right? And shouts to Michelle Gondry because he was wearing Hanger 18's t-shirt with Alaska.
Awesome.
So that's fucking cool.
That's what's up.
When I was watching that I mean, that was like one of the most like inspiring moments of my life. Like I was only really seriously in the studio rapping by that point for like 2-3 years. And me and my old rap partner saw it. We left there. We were like, holy shit. Like we got to do this forever. This is going to be our lives. But when I watched that documentary back then, you know, the Roots were on stage the whole time. They're playing for Dead Prez and Common and Kweli. When you see Kanye, who opens the show, when you see Kanye go out there with John Legend, and he's doing Jesus Walks and Spaceship and Through the Wire, it's like, I remember back then being like, oh, like he's the one now. Like these guys are like the guys that put the show on because they're Chappelle's homies and they're the go-to live guys, but he's the one. And I remember like seeing in the crowd people's faces when Kanye's playing and everyone's like versus like, you know, 20 minutes into the Dead Prez set. It's like, okay, you know, the Radicals, we like it, fists up, but it's like, it's not fucking with Through the Wire. You should hear like 2 words.
Well, I mean, Kanye's ability to tactically enlarge a song, right?
Right.
And
the
like,
ambition.
You tactically enlarge it over and over again. Is just something that they don't have. And I think when they were making music, it wasn't even an expectation, right? If you're inspired by native tongues, although the Tribe kind of did that though, right?
Tribe has so many hits.
Yeah.
Like Love Movement has fucking, what's the name? You know, you caught my heart for the evening. That's a hit. That's a hit.
Love that
you know,
song.
can I kick it? Opens up the new Tom and Jerry movie. With animated pigeons rapping like Q-Tip. Like that's a smash. De La has hits. You know what I mean? I just think like, come on, like The Choice Is Yours, Black Sheep. I mean, no Root song was really fucking with that. It's just not, you know. But so I just think it's like, but I think I don't think that was their intention. I don't think their motivation was to be hit makers. I think it was to be like working musicians and like have a catalog, you know, tour, do interesting things, collaborate, find people, you know, tour, you know, record live shit for 200 dates a year. And I think they've stuck to that shit. Like even the Thought solo joints, which I really like, you know, the second one with Salam Remy has moments that are like, this is catchy, but they're not hits. You know what I mean? They're not even close to appealing to a lot of people.
No, we and that's one of the things I wanted, because there's a lot of reverence for Black Thought. There's a lot of reverence for what he is. I just don't want it to be lost that we looked at a lot of the career that he was a part of. It was like watching Hito Turkoglu play basketball. We're like, how is this still working? What?
Right.
What?
Or Boris Dio.
No, this doesn't even make sense. Like,
Right.
and he kept coming, and they kept coming, and I mean they gave us a lot of cool stuff, but I worry that now that Black Thought is free, he's barring out, and it's cool to listen to, but there's the orchestration isn't there.
Mhm.
The themes and all that. It was kind of cool to be like, what is the next Roots album going to be about?
Mhm.
Is it and that we've kind of lost that with him, where I know what the next stream of thought's going to sound like.
Right.
And so it's interesting. It's an interesting legacy to look back on.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Most definitely.
and there was the whole sequence of like, let's hire the Roots as a backup band.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
Right, with I really don't like that John Legend record. I
don't
keep
wanna
it a
listen to that.
secret because most people are like,
Oh yeah, I love that
oh,
record.
John Legend and the Roots, I like that. I'm like,
I do have a problem. I do have a problem though with projects that are from the Roots but don't feature Thought at all. Like they have this Betty Wright album. It's Betty Wright and the Roots. Thought is not on the album.
no.
The Elvis Costello record
I'm
with
good,
the
yeah.
Roots.
Yep.
There's
Because
no
Ghosts. Yep.
there's no so if Thought is going to be an instrument in the band, then he needs to be included in Roots projects, and he's not always. I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I think all of that was like their NPR era. You know what I mean? It was like,
it's all Questlove. I mean, all of this is Questlove.
and again, this is not cool shit. Like this is like, I remember like seeing the John Legend album at the front register at Starbucks, and I was like, I'm good. This is where this album is. I'm out.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I'm good.
No, it's weird. And I didn't realize that he was such a force in it until much later, when I was like, oh, okay, that's why this has gone so weird. But once you do like the whole Jay-Z and the Che Guevara thing, like, and then behind him, then that's just kind of what you are now. You're and the Roots. You know?
Yeah, they were that way for a long time.
Yeah.
They did the MTV Unplugged and the Eminem performance at the Grammys. They played behind him.
Gross.
And yeah, exactly. I was like, what? What is going on?
Yeah.
So weird.
But yeah, it's doing approximations. Like when they were doing, like when they were doing Jigga What, Jigga Who during J Unplugged.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is fucking cool just because I'm hearing a different version of this already amazing all-time fucking production that Timbaland made by himself in Virginia.
Right.
Like he one guy did that.
It was a sample of a sample. Like I'm hearing them play a sample that somebody else turned into something amazing. It's just
But like they're playing Izzo, Kanye. I'm like, Kanye made that by himself in like Newark with the most sampled ass Jackson 5 record. And Jay-Z's like, that's the first single, got it. You know what I mean? Whereas the Roots are like, how many fucking albums do they have to make Izzo? You know, it's like it's the most basic shit in the world.
Yep.
Izzo, my fucking son can make Izzo. You know what I mean? I can be like, here's some soul records. Here's how you make beats. First beat you make is Izzo. Like that beat is simple as shit. You know what I mean? Like that's ready-made shit, and they just. I just think they kind of like look down their nose at some of that shit, but like you said about the Fallon, like it was like, okay, maybe playing 250 shows a year every year is not really the coolest because we're like 35. Let's just kind of get a day job. All right, cool.
Yeah.
But then it gave them access to all these other different musicians and How I Got Over and Betty Wright and John Legend and all these people. But again, it's like no one fucking cool is going on Jimmy Fallon except Tyler. You know, when they first started.
Gibbs.
Like that's, I mean, for them to kind of latch onto. I kind of think if you let Madlib do something with like Black Thought, for example,
right.
That's like the reckless and technically incredible and weird lane he can get. Because when he was on Bandana on the education joint with Freddie, I was like, this is fucking cool. And then when Freddie got thought on Shadow of a Doubt, where they're just rapping on Nautilus, I was like, this is fucking cool. And so like, what's up?
None of it changes thought though. I mean,
Right, but I'm saying like but when you have other people that are like pulling him onto that type of shit. So if someone like Madlib is like, here's the 10 beats you're gonna rap on for me.
Yeah.
Make it happen. They're gonna be like all over, and he's gonna be like this. He's like the Boldy James. Like, I just go straight through.
He's the anchor.
I'm the fullback, right?
Yeah.
So I just think if the music was wilder and more extravagant, maybe.
Okay.
Him being like I listen to like more like now I've been into like more of these like Memphis dudes like Moneybagg Yo and Young Dolph. These dudes rapping like this on every track. Your bitch is a fucking hoe I smack. Da 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 da. Like they talk like this all the time, and the beat is moving. They don't change their flow, but the beat is fucking trapping out. That's the 16th, like all the hi hats and the dudes in Young Dolph is like, you a herb, you never fucked a bitch in a dope house. I'm like, wow, that's fucking wild. But he's just saying it like that, like he's just talking.
Is that not what though? I think maybe just to play the devil's advocate. I can imagine Questlove making the argument that that's what and then I shoot your cousin was. Like,
nah, bro. Nah, man. You ain't hitting like Moneybagg Yo.
It's just this wild artistic.
I gotta play it again because I played it once and I was like, that was trash. And then my homie, who actually was the officiant at my wedding, who works he's a fucking pediatrician. He was like, yo, I pre-ordered that Roots album on iTunes just because they're the Roots. I love the Roots. And then I got it that day and was like, how do I return a digital download to iTunes? I was like, oof. He's like, yeah. He was like, it was terrible. I was like, oof. That's a bad look, man.
You feel bad about your collection after that. You're like, oh, I gotta have this in my collection.
Yeah, he was like, oh, how do I return the fucking digital? I was like,
no, but I mean, I would love like my favorite Mos Def album is The Ecstatic, right? It's just I love the crazy reinvention energy there.
Right.
But that would be cool to have a Black Thought kind of version of that with Madlib or Odo. But I was thinking of, because you mentioned Tyler, because Odd Future hit like this big wave and they were blogged out, but they weren't really selling. It didn't really match what was going on. So I think Tyler kind of stepped away and then came back with Flower Boy. And it was a full reset, right? Full reset. Like, and from then on, he's like, I'm different. I'm this guy and you follow me.
Right. Igor is a shit.
The Roots never really did a full reset. They were always carrying parts of something else into it. So that's one of the things.
And like Questlove's famous because he has the giant afro, but he's not cool. He's famous. Like he's fucking like your local weatherman's famous. He's not cool. If you see him, you're like, oh, that's the guy from Channel fucking 12 or whatever.
That comparison hurts. Weathermen are so talentless. It's such an empty job. I mean,
all right, well, whatever. You know what I'm saying. I'm just saying that he's famous, but like D'Angelo's cool.
No, I think the weird part and maybe the dangerous part about the Questlove thing is that he hangs around really funny people, but he's not funny. He hangs around really active, important, cool people, but he's not really cool or active. So he's like the guy next to the guy, and that is not the guy I want to take direction from, right? Like
like especially like Big Boy at 20 years old was the fucking coolest dude.
Right.
Yeah.
You're just cool as shit. I mean, you can't teach that. What else do you need to be? Like it's kind of like Talib Kweli never was cool, ever.
Right.
Just what it was like, but Mos Def been cool forever. And so I think that's kind of it's the charisma, it's the charm. It's like watching hip hop uncovered, like Bimmy and all those dudes. Like this fucking, they're just cool guys. They could just things are just gonna happen for them, good and bad. But they're always gonna something cool is gonna happen,
Right.
and wild and crazy. Whereas like you said, Questlove is like I was there that night it happened, but I was 900 feet away. But that cool thing happened, but it was 700 feet from me. Like I wasn't next to the guy. I was like near it. So when you talk about the Source Awards and Biggie and Nas and all that, and like they left, and I'm like, yeah, but Biggie ran that shit. Like that was Biggie's night. You know what I mean? You were just in row 15, but you were there.
I think there's a value in that, though. I mean, there's a like.
Oh, it's incredible to be a part of history.
A long history, yeah.
He gets to be in the history, right?
Right.
No, 100%. Yeah.
And I think he brings that to some extent to the Roots, like musically.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm here. He's not a superstar. He never was. He doesn't have that quality.
I'm saying, like he's the most famous member,
right? Because he's the most vocal, like you said. Like he's like a person who's been making music for 30 years that has figured out how to master social media. Like how many people his age can say that?
That's true.
I totally forgot what I was going to say. That's my point.
You read something he said.
But I remember reading him say like he never knew. He like admitted, I don't know how to write hooks. I've never been good at that. I don't know how to write pop songs.
That's a real problem when you're on a major label.
It is. For real. That's what I was trying to say before. Right. Like this is a dude who's been in a band for 3 decades and had much success, and he admits he doesn't know how to write a hook. That's crazy.
Yeah. No, I mean, so I would say it because it's not to put it in the proper framework, because we are discussing the kind of cons here in the Roots, but there's nothing tragic about the story in the sense that
the trial
covering mixtapes for a long friggin' time. One of the most tragic figures in my mind is Saigon.
Oh man.
Because Saigon was brilliant. And he was just engaged and he was ready to go. Mm-hmm. And Just Blaze locked in with him and was like, I'm going to make you big. Mm-hmm. And Just Blaze couldn't, at the height of his production powers, make Saigon big, which means you're not going to be big. Nope. There was something missing there in Saigon's, charisma, magnetism, vision that just wouldn't make it happen.
Right.
And that is not what the Roots are, right? The Roots are missing some charisma, but they were still able, like the Al Horford career is still a great career.
It's a great career.
Absolutely.
It's like borderline Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm. But Saigon versus Beanie Siegel, that's a real thing, right? Beanie just stepped in the room and was all of a sudden the man. Right. And because he said he was the man, and it wasn't the same when Papoose said that. It wasn't the same when Saigon said that.
Yeah, like it's one thing to have that fervor when you're new, but then how do you like meet it, and then how do you carry it? So like I said, when I watched Kanye on Chappelle movie, and he had that fervor because he was a new guy and he had the blazer on with the Rockefeller chain and John Legend and the choir and all that shit. And then he was like, okay, I'm going to carry that into Gold Digger. I'm going to carry that into Can't Say Nothing. You know what I mean? Like, kept pushing it. He just really only fell off like 6 years ago.
Right.
But he started in 04, really? Like 03, 04?
Right.
Pretty amazing. Whereas like the Roots were just like when I listen to Things Fall Apart, I'm like, man, you guys, there's so much cool, wild shit happening on this record. And then we said, then it's okay, left fields, but then you hit the seed. Oh shit, like that's bigger than anything. But then we never get close to that ever again. You know what I mean? Like it's not even like these records are saved by like 3 amazing singles every time out. If you just had like 3 big singles every time, right, we'll be forgiving to something where the bottoms are very low. But
the capabilities were so incredible, right? Like we said, like indie rock was big, so they pulled in Joanna Newsom and Jim James. Right. How many rap acts could do that though? right?
Mm.
And make it work.
Not be wildly corny. Yeah, you're right.
Right.
You know, like Tony
Right.
Yayo's going to follow up Thoughts of a Predicate Felon with Joanna Newsom. Like, it's not going to happen.
He's like, yo, I've been fucking with Tori Amos, man. Straight up.
Yeah.
Bring her through. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yo, if this album is the Flaming Lips are the backup, they're just banned
you know
on
what I
this.
mean?
It's not
Yo,
going to work.
straight up, man.
Yeah.
I fuck with that flaming lip shit. Yo.
So they were able to do these songs.
They
And
did pull it
Joanna
off,
Newsom
yeah.
doesn't even sound like weird on that record. It makes sense in some weird way. But
Maybe they should have added the female vocalist.
oh, I totally agree with this.
Mm.
Yes.
They should have always had the female vocalist be the fucking singer, like Fergie.
Jaguar Wright should have been a
Wright.
member of the
Or
band.
like even remember like Estero was on. They tried to make her in the Black Eyed Peas for that one record. They knew, like, yo, just having 3 b-boy ass dudes is not going to sell 5 million.
Mm.
We need the chick.
Jill,
you could have had Jill.
They tried to do that with Ursula, put her on the end of every record.
Mm-hmm. Think about TDE though. Think about when TDE was coming up. It was all about Janae Aiko. It was all about like these people you would bring in who would, female voices, beautiful voices.
But then you would have Kendrick singing like a woman. They would pitch up Kendrick's voice to sound like a woman.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, bitch, don't kill my vibe.
Yeah.
I am a sinner. Like that sounds feminine.
Right.
They give it like that softer tone. Like I feel like when you hear like Jill Scott, like Take a Walk, right?
Yep.
That's someone could rap on that shit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pockets in that. So imagine if that was a Roots song where 8 bars, Black Thought, Jill, 12 bars, Black Thought, Jill, 8 bars, Black Thought. That's a smash hit for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So she's such an amazing artist too. I just feel like they just didn't have. And every time they would pull this, like Cody Chestnut, how do you let him leave the room?
That is a great question.
How the fuck do you not put paperwork on him being like, check it out, bro. You're in the band. Here's the deal.
Oh, that's
50,000 up front right today. Say no to 50,000 today. You're in the band right now. Take it.
No, it's the best single they have ever made. Like
it's the best
they
thing
had
ever
to
did.
know it. They had to know it at the time.
Like, it's not like his albums just set the world on fire without them. His albums are like whatever after them.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just like, how do you not put paper on these people?
Right.
And then Hove was like, yo, Petey Crack is in the group. And Petey fucked it up. But like, okay, man, Rozell's gone, Hub's gone, Ben Kenny's gone. Nah, bro, Joanna Newsom, she's in the band from now on. I don't give a fuck what it takes. We'll call her a lawyer. She's in the group. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Joanna Newsom, Cody Chestnutter in the band.
Mm.
Your hooks are set. Questlove doesn't have to think about a hook.
That's a good
You're
point.
good.
Yeah.
You're good. You're done.
There needed to be more of like that Springsteen and the E Street Band vibe of like aggressively working people in. Like, look, I know this is a rustic song about a factory worker, but we got a saxophone lick for you. Trust me,
Yes.
And making it work. They needed that energy to bring in some of these people.
Yeah, I just think they tried, like we said with the neo soul shit and Erica and having all these people around Jaguar. I'm like, okay, man, Jaguar's in the group from now on, bro.
Love it.
After MTV Unplugged, when she steals a show, how do you let her walk out of the room and be like, okay, I'm leaving you guys to go make my solo album. You just gave me all the buzz. I leave. That doesn't make sense.
No, it didn't work for anybody though.
No, they both lost.
I listened to her album one time and then I moved
whatever. You know what I mean? It's like she could have benefited from the musicality of that band.
Yeah.
And haven't thought there.
One thing I wanted to ask about phrenology and the response. Is it Water that is the disc response to, or the explanation of what happened with Malik B?
Malik, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay? Re-listening to it, I was like, this seems like kind of an uncool thing to do.
It's not cool. Like I would not. At the time, I was really young and I was like fascinated because I love Malik and I was wondering why he was gone. So I was hearing that and I was like, oh shit. But then years later, as I got older and older, then he came back. I was like, he's done a lot more songs with you since you made that song, airing out whatever things you're struggling with or going through. And I feel like if you're gonna make that song, play it for him in person. don't put
like
it
it's
on
a private thing.
yeah, like don't put
Yeah.
on the follow-up album to your biggest record ever.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just it's kind of weird to just put that out there. And they were like young in their career stills. Like
Mhm.
it wasn't like he was gone for 20 years or some shit. He missed one album.
Right.
Like it's just it was weird to me. But at the time
And
I
it-
was like, wow, I wonder where but I thought he was like living on the street or some shit. The way
Right.
they broke it down.
That song, I think, remains for me today. It feels like the most personal Black Thought song.
Mm.
And I still don't really understand what happened.
Yeah.
You know,
Fair.
it's like the same problem like that I was talking about earlier. Like it's
Right.
way too vague. Like if you're gonna make a song like that, like I felt drawn to it because I was like, oh, I'm gonna get the scoop. He's gonna
Right.
tell me
Yeah.
Right.
like what happened, and then it ends, and I'm like, I'm still not really sure. Like it wasn't detailed, but it was like a little too detailed. You know, it was weird.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was no resolution to it, and it wasn't. So you're right. So afterwards, you're like, well, why is it here?
Mhm.
Right.
You're kind of airing out this dude's business, but why? He's dying of lupus. Is
Right.
he living on the streets for 5 years, smoked out? Like, what is happening?
Right.
And then
Right.
here he is 2 years later on the album.
Yeah.
You're
My
like, what?
my social media rule is that whatever you're saying, you got to think about it as if you're saying it in a crowded grocery store full of people you know.
Mm.
And that way you'll hold back some of the weird stuff you're thinking of.
Yeah. You have some conscience. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Put it in
Exactly.
perspective. Think about you being in the grocery store being like, damn, your Valentine's Day present sucked. And you're like, oh, shit.
Right.
And that's kind of, I wish they would have maybe thought about it like that. Like, man, you're making this dude sound run down, and now he's got to go make his own career. You know, like,
Yes.
Mm.
it sucks. Like,
Yeah.
They kind of salted him from doing anything he wanted to do. Maybe he was trying to get a deal, or maybe someone was going to sign him, or it really just put the narrative. They controlled his narrative,
right.
and he was active. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that's just kind of shitty about it when you think back to it. Again, it's not like he was 50 years old, like on a wheelchair somewhere,
No.
hadn't rapped since the 80s or some shit. It's like and he comes right back slaughtering on Game Theory, dude.
Yep.
Bodying
Amazing.
people.
Amazing on Game Theory.
Yeah, rest in peace, Malik, man. Shout out to them.
100%.
Shit.
Yeah, and the Black Thought's message after he passed was very telling of like, I always wanted to change you, and you know,
Mhm.
that he kind of wished he had done differently. But there seems to have been a lot of that in the mix early on, of people wanting to change people. So
Yeah, I mean, from the way it's been explained, like from John Morrison and Jaguar, it's just he just wasn't with being on the road like that all the time. It just
Mhm.
wasn't his thing. He just didn't want to, I've seen him at the Philly shows. I've seen him around Philly before he passed. Like I saw him at Silk City. I've seen him in other spots. Like most people, even when they're in that world, how long does it really last? You doing 250 shows a year,
Right.
even if you're all in. Like, so he kind of got a taste of it early and was like, I don't. But like we said, but then I watched Black Thought many times live do everyone's verse in a song when he would only have one verse in a song. He would do the Dice Raw verse,
right.
the Malik verse, whoever. So yeah, that shit was that's a lot of fucking rapping, dude. That's
Incredible.
every night.
Incredible. No,
Ugh.
he's and it's that I'm glad that the end result is that the Roots are as weird as I thought they were. That seems to be the conclusion. It's just that it's hard to compare them against other people because it was just so unique and so different. But and even though you could say organized noise and that Dungeon Family Click blew up in a bigger, better way, they probably wouldn't have been able to do it without what the Roots did earlier.
Sure, good point.
So there's a connectivity there that's important. But yeah, I think we've done the subject. I think I want to end this the way I end most things by thanking Nia Long for everything she's done.
Sure.
Salute. Eddie. Oh, by the way, Any plugs anybody wants to do?
Go for it, Rob.
Rob, Next Movement podcast.
I hesitate to
Good
say
kid.
too much because there's some things that have yet to
Woo!
be finalized, but
Love it.
we got an episode coming up that I'm excited about. I can tell you that the plan, so I'll give you some background about the Next Movement. We aim to try to preserve the culture by examining albums from the past while talking to active artists, or up and coming artists. When we have guests on the show, we ask them to pick a record that was influential to them, and we talk to them about what they're doing, but then talk to them about that record. So I can tell you, we're planning to talk about the War Report on our next episode. It's a choice from one of our guests, but I won't say their name, so I'll leave that in suspense.
Fire. And you got the homie Max from Brewerytown Beats right now talking Schoolie D.
Yeah, that was our
Max.
most recent episode. Man, it was great to talk to Max. Max has got his hands in a lot of important stuff, especially here in Philly, preserving a lot of the rich music history here. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say you could hold him solely responsible for saving Sigma Sound Studios here in Philly, which is an institution.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, Max is dope.
So check out our latest episode with Max. We're talking with him, and we're talking about Schoolie D's self-titled debut.
Yep, and you can get Wrecking Crew releases at Brewerytown Beats.
There you go.
Ooh.
And they carry John Morrison's tape. They carry Hellhole Stores tapes. They carry Ray West tapes and CDs and J Zone, and they fuck with all of us, man. So it's
merch
dope.
up. Merch
man.
up.
And then my show called Culture Podcast. We got an episode about MC Hammer, probably dropping. I'm not sure when this airs, but it'll probably be out a little bit after that. And then what else we got going on? And I got an album. I got my solo album being mixed and mastered that should be done this week.
Mm-hmm.
So Vegas Vic, I'm not sure if that's coming out first, or I don't know what I'm dropping first, but that's should be done this week. And then me and Small Pro Career Crooks second album, that's getting mastered in the next couple weeks. It's called Never at Peace. And then me and Ray West album's done. That's about to get mixed. I don't know what the title of that record is yet. So that's it. And then I just got off the phone with Jason Griff right before this call from Insubordinate Records. And we're going to have a meeting in the mines because they got the Alex Ludovico record coming out. And I had another idea for Alex Ludovico. And then Griff in Alaska, it's like 8 songs deep in their record. So there's a lot of really cool shit with people we were friends with. And
that EP they just dropped is fantastic.
Yeah, that came out. Alex and Griff, that came out today.
Yep.
312
today. Excellent.
312 EP. It's fucking cool. So there's a lot of fun stuff, man. Shit. People have been getting at me to make us like more of a label. So I'm like, all right, we gotta think about how we're gonna do this. And not everybody hate our guts. And that's about it, man. The Record Crew is expansion year. Carry on Scorsese's legacy. Just carrying that energy and not being afraid of shit and just doing it. So that's pretty much it, man. So shouts to Next Movement, my podcast called Culture, and Free Music Empire, which this has been cool. I've been waiting, man. I was like, yo, I want to talk to Dan on fucking Zoom, man.
We're doing it, man. It's excellent. It's been an excellent time for me just to be able to lock in and talk to, really smart, really cool people. Just kind of scouring Bandcamp and hearing shit before maybe it drops or whatever. And being able to like interview Masai about her EP, and being able to interview Sleep Sinatra, and just having access to these super smart cats and being able to pick their brain on how they do this shit. Really cool.
Yeah,
man. Shouts to you, bro.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I appreciate it, everybody, and buy hats. Buy some
Midnight Suns hats.
Buy some cool hats.
There you go.
Right. These joints are comfy. It's about to be back in the closet though. It's been getting warm, really warm. So
yeah,
a little warm for the hat. Yeah.
Wear the hats now.
Right.